Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Thanks, Tucker. Judy, you want to do the roll, please?
Yeah. Neil Budnick.
Here.
Judy Noble. Tom Schulte.
Here.
Amy Carroll is absent. Todd Lavieri. Michael Chin.
Yeah.
Okay. Chris Labrie.
Here.
Victor Alvarez.
Here.
Maria Weingarten. Here. Robert Hamill.
Here.
Colin Dobbin.
Here.
And our first selectman, Kevin Monahan. So we have to seat Colin for Amy. So we need a motion.
Motion, Neil, second, Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, so moved. Before we start tonight, I'd like to just ask the first selectman to make a few comments regarding passing of Steve Benko.
Yes, as you know, Friday evening, we lost our beloved colleague and friend, Steve Benko, to a very brief battle with cancer. He was diagnosed with cancer just before Christmas. And he would have been our recreation director and for 50 years in June. And so it's a remarkable career that he had with the town, and probably the most dedicated public servant, certainly I think any of us have seen. Steve's funeral will be next week, and but I'd like to just have a brief moment of silence for Steve. Thank you, and let's keep the entire Benko family in our prayers.
Thank you. Okay. Let's have a couple housekeeping items. We have a motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, the 8th meeting, please.
So moved.
Tom, second. Colin, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No corrections? Okay, great.
I do have a question. Do we have minutes for February 10?
They're coming on Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so just before we start, we're going to start with the waiving of usage presentation, go into budget reviews for employee health benefits, land use, and Department of Public Works. I just wanted to keep everybody up to speed as it relates to our role as the WPCA for the town of New Canaan. Our email boxes are full. We recognize we've received literally dozens and dozens and dozens of emails. Obviously, we cannot reply to those emails, but we do find it very important that we keep everybody up to date with a few things. So we received a memo today from the town attorney's office and Peter Gelderman, and a memo to the WPCA. So I'll read the memo. It is our goal to keep everyone informed in the town of any new news or updates regarding 751 Weed Street that pertain again to the WPCA. So the memo reads, and this will be in your tablets, and then it is a public document, of course. So several questions have arisen with respect to the town processes and procedures as a result of the request to permit a 102-unit multifamily development to connect to New Canaan's municipal sewer. As part of the application, the developer has also sought an allocation of capacity for the project. It's the WPCA's duty to decide the application limited to those two issues. The developer has also filed an application with the New Canaan Planning and Zoning Commission under General Statute Section 8-30G for approval of an affordable housing set-aside development where a minimum of 30% of the units will be set aside as affordable. The P&Z will review the application based on well-established criteria that only apply to the P&Z. However, for the WPCA, it is simply a question, and that's this board, as a reminder to everybody, the Board of Finance also has a dual duty of being the administrator of the WPCA. That's why I'm reading this. It is simply a question of reviewing an application for a multifamily development as if the property were zoned for multifamily use. In other words, the WPCA would not consider land use criteria, including zoning compliance, impact on wetlands, historical factors, and similar considerations. Those matters will be considered by the appropriate town bodies. Therefore, the WPCA will look to experts, whether town staff from Public Works, the wastewater treatment department, the town engineer, and or other professional consultants that the WPCA may determine are needed to evaluate the application. The decision of the WPCA must be rendered within 65 days of the date of receipt of the application. The date of receipt is statutorily defined is a statutorily defined term, and in this case is February 8th, 2022. With the consent of the applicant, the WPCA may extend the period in which to render a decision for an additional term or terms of, but not exceeding in total another 65 days. In evaluating the application, the WPCA has limited discretion. Since the property is within the sewer district and is currently connected to the sewer, the applicant will argue that it has a right to the connection. That conclusion would be supported by case law. As for capacity, either the system has capacity or it does not. But included in the evaluation of capacity, the WPCA is entitled to look at the adequacy of the system as well as the gallonage available in the treatment plant. The system would include existing infrastructures, pipes, et cetera, pump stations, if any, in the plant itself. Issues like traffic, public safety, fire access, impact on schools, taxes, and other matters would not be considered by this WPCA. Some of those issues may be relevant to P&Z, but the WPCA should limit its inquiry to the connection and the capacity. So again, that memo will be public and available to everybody. We will establish a date and announce a schedule for the preliminary hearing, which will be sometime in late March. And then we will schedule a final hearing sometime in April. We'll get those dates set. I'd like to get them set next week. It's possible it will go into the first week of March, but we'll, again, likely to have the first hearing at the end of March and the final hearing in our vote sometime in April. So we'll get those dates out to everybody within a week or so. So I just want to give that update to everyone and make sure the town was aware. With that, I believe we will go over to our first agenda item with the Webinary usage presentation.
At least you've got the one monitor there, so that's the one that works.
Do I share my screen?
Yes, you can share your screen. Sarah Allard, Ellen Reed with Case Study Brands, and they have been working with us for the better part of 6 months on a project to present to you all. The Board of Selectmen saw it a couple of weeks ago. And this is our sort of brand DNA presentation of possible, what could be possible at Waveney, given a few enhancements here and there to really make it a top-notch wedding venue, event venue, all the while making sure that it's available to our community for the great things that happen there all week long. I'm going to let them take you through it. We have done a very sort of primitive business analysis. If we were to, and you'll see some of the information that they have there on in terms of what are some of the other rates that other venues get, what we could do compared to ours, and we'll take it from there. So I'm just going to let Sarah bring you through what we're under a big time crunch, so we'll let you go for it, and then we'll go from there.
And before you start, we might mention you currently do the Field Fest for the New Canaan Athletic Foundation.
Right. Yes. That's how we met them. And do you want to give a quick announcement of what happened today? You're dying. I know you're dying. Why don't you tell them?
We are super lucky and we do all of the branding and marketing for the Greenwich Town Party. And we announced today that Billy Joel is headlining.
Oh,
Billy Joel.
Oh my
We had a
gosh.
very exciting day.
Oh my gosh.
Free tickets to New Canaan residents are available. This could be a really short presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much for having us. This was one of our favorite projects we've worked on. There's tremendous opportunity here, and what we've outlined is just we spoke with a number of key stakeholders and really got an opportunity to learn about the history of Waveney, the opportunities for Waveney, and a lot about New Canaan. So I'm going to walk you through an introduction. The objective of our partnership with the town of New Canaan is to provide guidance and clarity for the brand DNA of Waveney House. Specifically, we have worked to uncover and articulate an overarching brand DNA and strategic guidelines for Waveney House to drive engagement, to build community, and ultimately return on investments for the town of New Canaan. This discovery and positioning will serve as an important tool to ensure clear and consistent messaging and provide a foundation for future communications and strategic planning. Here is a list of the people that we got to speak with. Each of the interviews were an hour and really helped form all of the information that you're going to see here. So the background on Waveney was that it constructed in 1912 as a summer residence. It was designed for the Lapham family by renowned architect W.B. Tubbs on grounds conceived by Frederick Law Olmsted Jr., the son of the designer of Central Park. Their estate was a place of elegance, culture, and vitality, a crown jewel in the community. In 1967, the town of New Canaan purchased Waveney House from Mrs. Ruth Lapham Lloyd. Since then, Waveney House has been primarily used as offices for local government, including the recreation department, a meeting space for community organizations, and as an event space and wedding venue. We've listed the constituents that use it now. And here is a very long and comprehensive list of events and usage. So I think each of you have a copy of this.
We do.
Okay,
We do.
perfect. So I'm not gonna
Nope.
go through all that. But the house itself right now faces some significant challenges. The second floor needs to become ADA compliant. There's a need to address the HVAC system. Right now, there's no dedicated event manager, so that when people are calling, we put Parks and Rec. So part of that we'll address here. There's a lot of shared physical space. There's no single space that can accommodate a large gathering. Each of the rooms are divided. Right now, there's no dedicated website or communication channel. There's no branding or marketing. The interior decorating upgrades that are needed include rugs, furniture, and window treatments. We'd like to use more available rooms, such as the library and billiard room. New banquet chairs are badly needed, no storage for the chairs, and no on-site catering. So all of this came from our interviews. Here we've sort of painted the competitive landscape in if you are a bride and you're looking to choose another venue in public historic venues, or you can go to a country club or a hotel venue, and just highlighting some of the differences there. We worked with, I don't know if to speak the Iona study, but
Right, we had the team of students, graduate students at Iona who also helped us as part of a project that they were working on.
so they did a competitive landscape and were able to plug in some numbers. Nothing here is apples to apples because each venue is different and what they have, but it just helps sort of when you dig into this to see the numbers that people are charging, but also the benefits that come with some of the things they can offer in terms of professional staffing or rentals. All those things are included here. Here's a list of the current rental fees at Waveney. By comparison, they're very low to some of what we're seeing, but what we're going to talk about today is really how to increase those fees by increasing the value proposition of what we're going to share. So this slide is a little bit about what we bring to the table. Brand DNA is what we've entitled sort of the mission, the purpose, and the why of any brand. We believe that in doing this exercise and in speaking, we can create strong engagement. A strong purpose can inspire passion and drive. Clear communication, a purpose-driven organization tells its story in a clear, authentic way, reflective of its values, which elicits affinity and connections. Total alignment, a clearly defined mission and values ensure that everyone's on the same page working towards a common goal. And creative innovation. So what we're going to share with you today, we hope is really going to put everyone on the same page about the relationship New Canaan has with Waveney House and the town in general. So we shape our buildings, thereafter our buildings shape us. So based on interviews, research, and history, we've identified and articulated the values that drive the lens through which we approach Waveney House, we being New Canaan. The first one was community. We value the opportunity to gather, engage, and celebrate the people and groups that make New Canaan special. And then culture. We celebrate culture. The history of the house is rooted in art, music, history, and education. And elegance. We are inherently beautiful, an architectural masterpiece built with artisan craftsmanship, attention to detail, and exceptional design. Heritage. We are committed to the preservation and promotion of this historic landmark. And vitality. We are at our very best when the house is filled with life and we're marking milestones and new beginnings. So next we're going to look at our strategy, and these are the tactical ways that we can approach our mission so that we can make sure we ensure our goals are realized. So the first one is that we can revitalize the house. The second is we can engage as a brand. And the third is we can maximize utilization.
No accident that she's here with Tiger's about to present his Capitol Crest.
Perfect. So for revitalizing the house, we believe that Waveney House is the crown jewel of New Canaan. We have heard from many sources over a long period of time that additional structural and design updates are needed. As stewards of the house, it is our responsibility to protect our investment and undertake this critical work as soon as possible. Continuing to invest in necessary upgrades will allow us to maintain the building's relevance and usability, making the venue more competitive with other options and more appealing to the intended audiences. The second opportunity is to engage as a brand. We have the opportunity to elevate Waveney House as its own brand. We seek to create an identity that positions the venue as a luxury brand reflective of both its heritage and crown jewel positioning within the community. Through branding, communications, and a dedicated staff, we can lead with the brand persona, values, and standards to achieve the luxury status that this house deserves. And third, maximize utilization. With investments in Waveney House's physical structure, along with the development of a new brand identity, we believe that we will set the stage for utilizing the venue at its fullest potential and generating revenue accordingly. Our action items include expanding capacity at events by acquiring a temporary tent and restroom facilities. Our dedicated staff and new branding will increase the venue's perceived value and will generate increased usage fees. And leveraging both our physical space and our calendar will enable additional users to access the venue for new and for more types of events. Now we're going to talk about our mission, which is how we achieve our vision and purpose. We will invest time, money, and resources to preserve and celebrate this landmark and this community.
Sarah, you know what? I'm going to have you just highlight a couple of these only because in the interest of time.
Yep.
So maybe rather than read them all, just take them through.
Sure.
What I'd love for them to see is when you get to the, keep going a couple slides. I mean,
Okay.
these are all very important.
Here's our summary slide.
Right, good.
Okay, so our purpose here is everyone in this room, as we look at this project, is to preserve and to celebrate the history and the future of Waveney House. So our vision as we look to the future is to create a self-sustainable institution that represents the very best values of New Canaan culture, community heritage as it moves to its next chapter. So, and this just sort of walks through the things that we just went through. So we talk about there's work to be done. Here's a list of ideas we heard. You know, it gets very detailed, but there's people were very creative and passionate really about what they think needs to be done. Opportunities and tactics. We had an idea and we had spoke about the public-private partnership here. We believe that on the path forward, there's an opportunity to leverage the Conservancy to further the mission of Waveney House as a centerpiece of the park and our community. The collaboration would be modeled as a public-private partnership designed to enable the undertaking of critical updates to the facility and its property, as well as to explore ideas and opportunities to continue to evolve the venue and its offerings. So we cited the New Canaan Athletic Foundation and the Greenwich Point Conservancy as similar examples. And here we've just put down the roadmap for success ideas based on what we've heard of things that could be implemented that we would get us much closer to our strategy. Dedicated staff. We believe that putting in somebody that was dedicated to Waveney, somebody that was all knowing about the house, the history, the details, somebody that could meet and tour with people when they came to see the house itself, someone that could manage the calendar, the dates and the details, someone that could speak to the vendor resources and recommendation and provide concierge services. So here we've provided a couple examples of other competitive venues and just the website pages of their dedicated staff and how they speak to it. The next idea is to have a dedicated website. And so this is sort of what the site map might contain. Right now, the current Waveney House website sits on the Town of New Canaan's website. So you have A, you have to dig to get to it, and B, it really doesn't do it justice. So here I'm just going to show you a couple other, you know, also people that were on the competitive landscape that just have beautiful dedicated websites. So imagine you're a bride and you're going and you go to the Town of New Canaan versus one of these. It doesn't really set you up for feeling like it's a prestigious venue worthy of your investment. So these are some beautiful websites that we showed, and
We're laughing. We're just imagining a bride going through the, you know, the parking,
Right.
you know.
to pay a parking ticket.
How do I get a dump sticker?
Yep.
And you're standing there with a child who's getting his T-ball, you know, certificate while you're renting your, you know, your wedding venue.
So here is sort of our vision of what it could look like and how exciting that would be. We would love to give the Waveney House a brand, a logo, something that could be on, you know, whether it's your cornhole or your invitations or anything, wine glasses, champagne, just to really help elevate the perception of that from a branding and luxury standpoint. So we've just a couple ideas of monograms that would be beautiful, but they could be on anything and everything. We love the idea of making an absolutely beautiful website there's tremendously beautiful photography out there. We went through a lot of brides' weddings, and I think that really positions you in such a different place. So these are just ideas of how beautiful, and we also love the idea of when you go down the driveway, putting those big museum kind of flags. And if there was an exhibit or something in the library or an event, it really starts to make something feel as special as it deserves. That's it.
We don't usually come up with ideas and give them to you
Yeah.
ahead of time, but
We love
we
this,
loved
and
it so
The
much.
house
We
is
had
super
to.
special, and I think it'd be
Yeah.
amazing to invest in it.
The point being that we've been operating weddings for 40 years out of the rec department.
Yeah, I know.
It's really a matter of positioning and marketing.
So we also took a look, I mean, all of this takes money. We took a
What's
look
that?
at what, we have not raised any of the fees since 2017. You saw we're very underpriced compared to our competitors, but we also need to do some things to the building to make it, feel like it's worth the investment when it comes to an event like this. So these were we had the help of Christine Sullivan, who works at the Small Business Development Center, and she helped us run some of these business model numbers. This is just taking into account that the assumption that we would raise it to 4,500, 5,000, 5,500. Again, this is resident fees and what that would look like. This package allows you to then see what some of our expenses would be. We had some help from the current financials and expenses that are running at Waveney now. So again, you have this all on your tablets. Just wanted to take you through it. And the big part is some of the things that have to happen at the building. There's some major enhancements that have to happen at the building, and that's what we're here talking about tonight.
Are the budget items, I guess there needs to be a decision as to whether this is going to go forward or not. And then there are the budget items related to capital
This is
or
all,
hiring.
this is all in support of the capital items,
Right.
which are
Yeah.
not only critical for ADA compliance, but also
Sure,
Second floor
Yeah,
buildings.
all that. Okay. Well, then there's the hiring. There's people. You have the dedication. There's the website. Some of that's one time, but some of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we've talked about different scenarios where that might work, and there's some ideas there as well. So that's it in a nutshell. You must have some questions. We hope we had you at hello on some of the
You did.
the design component.
You had me when you went through 46 pages
Yeah.
in 17 minutes. That was very good.
That's remarkable.
Wow. And we hope that you will look at it, and I think you have both of these documents on the website, and then Tiger can take you through some of the.
Well, just how much would it cost to roughly do the minimum building? You'd have to do some building and like that deck in the back and.
Yeah, that's a
Deck.
multi-million-dollar question.
Well, multi-million dollars, don't say that.
Well, I think what does it take to build a financial, what would we have to do to build a financial model that someone's going to pay $15,000 for this, not $3,000?
Right,
That's the question. And what does that look like?
because right now the people who pay $3,000 are actually not so unhappy because they're looking for a cheaper venue that is.
That's right.
Interestingly enough, that is the truth, but we talked to a number of people who had weddings there who could have afforded to have weddings at the Botanical Gardens, and they chose Waveney because it meant something to them. It wasn't really a
Mhm.
cost decision. So there's just some very basic things that need to be done, like the chairs, right? The chairs are just old,
Yeah.
kind of tattered
It's easy.
chairs.
Yeah.
There's no place to store all of the tables right now. So they're all in the billiard room. So the billiard room is now off limits because we can't use that room as a place to set up food, if you will.
Yeah.
And, the one downside that we heard in talking to people about Waveney was it really restricted to 160 people in those 3 separate rooms. So the idea of possibly having a tent, the ability to have a tent so that you could have a bigger event there was something that we'd like to
Well,
explore.
if it rains, you lose your dance floor,
Yeah,
and that's kind of a big deal.
right,
Like people like to dance at a wedding.
right.
So what I'm looking for is sort of a base number, just structurally, not promotionally. I'm sure you can structure that beautifully. But are we talking about spending 5 million,
Oh, no.
3 million?
Well, I think
Ways
it's
to go. Mm.
Tiger, come on up.
Yeah, but you have to look at this and at least consider the money. You can't just consider the venue.
Right.
It sounds like an exciting project, but
I think to Neil's points, there's To do anything, we have to spend something. There's a minimum something. What is that? $2 million for the ADA compliance and some other related things. There's some,
Right, I can speak to the compliance issues.
Right.
As far as like trying to get it to, it was beautiful, by the way. The, probably the sixth time I've seen it, but I never got to see it. To get to that level, there's other things that have to happen. But as far as like to make the building accessible on both floors, you can utilize both floors to what they're doing now, where the bride and the groom are upstairs and they come back downstairs. The bathrooms would be upstairs. We have a 2-phase plan in our budget right now. We have just under $1 million to put in the bathrooms, $990,000. That number was a bid number, but it's gone up because of COVID. And then we had a marker for about 1.76. We're still trying to dial that number in for the elevator to go up and down, right? So all in, you're about 2.6, 2.5, depending. And then, right now that's COVID number, right? So the supply chain is really, really bad. As we go forward, we're looking at hopefully something coming down on the backside. We're talking to people, the numbers should come back down again. So while I'm saying 990 in my budget this year and 1.76 in my budget next year, so for a 2.6 total, 2.7 total, I think that number probably will dial back down again as we tighten up the elevator situation. And then the decision is, do you do the elevator now in the bathrooms later, or you do the bathrooms now in the elevator later? They're part and parcel, but we were trying to split them up over a couple of years just to soften the blow. Right. As far as it goes, there is a cost savings to doing it together. Obviously, there is a cost savings to that, but we would have to explore that with the contractor that we have. But that gives you an idea of where we are to get the building. Now we would be 100% ADA compliant. We could utilize the entire structure
And storage,
and
because you can move things
right.
downstairs.
but you lose 2 years of being in business.
Yeah.
No,
we
do it in
look-
the winter.
Yeah.
Right.
Winter, but don't you need to spend the $2.5 million to make it ready for an event like this?
No, I would say
Okay.
no.
We don't have to do the bathrooms. We don't have to do the elevator.
But we have to at some point in time, yes, to make the building fully compliant. We are not fully compliant, so we're still treading on.
But the bathrooms can be done in the winter time, and the elevator is constructed offsite and installed quickly, so.
And you can
Okay.
cordon off that area with
Okay,
a nice
but it's
wall.
2 budgets, but that could be 13 months.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Just a quickie, when we're on profit margin, just roughly speaking, what would you expect the profit margin over, let's say, the next 5 years to be?
Tucker, you didn't introduce the idea that we consulted 2 people, Christine Sullivan and
Sorry, Christine Sullivan with a small business. Yeah, thanks. And Alan Smith, who is a New Canaan resident who was president of Four Seasons, and he worked with us. And, the interesting thing on this is there's no, it's rented. It's almost rented. I mean, the 2023.
60
she's
weddings a
taking-
year.
Yeah, she's taking reservations now. So depending, I don't know that exact number for you, but I can tell you that they told us that we are, we could double, if not, if we get some of these things done and be able to charge that, and your number would increase significantly.
Can we, I think, holding the capital aside for a
Yeah.
moment, can we have a break-even operation in a year or two? Because you have to hire someone who have to get the website,
Yeah.
but we have
So
some of those.
These were just
things.
our brand specialists. They haven't,
Right.
they haven't been.
Yeah.
No, I'm asking you. I mean, is there a financial model that shows that this
Yes,
operationally, we can
Quotation.
break even?
on your tablets.
Right, that's
The business-
exactly-
You have that on your tablet.
I didn't print it out. I don't have it. Okay, we can take a look at that because,
Yeah.
if is in the budget to hire this person in this budget,
A part-time person.
part-time person. Okay, and to do the website,
Well, they would help us with that. That would be.
is that in the budget?
Not yet.
No.
I'm asking a
not yet.
budget question. What do we have to
No.
vote on? I get sort of tactical at the end of
The capital projects. This
that's
is all in support of the capital projects,
Right.
which quite honestly, we have to do anyway
Yeah.
if we want to use the second floor.
Right.
Because we make it to the point, if you want to do weddings, you need the second floor, or you can't be in the wedding business.
Right.
And we may, if we don't do the second floor elevator, we don't have a venue anymore.
Yeah, I think we've always said we'd love to do the capital, but only if there's a plan to do the rest. And
Right.
so now we're hearing there's a plan to do the rest.
Do you have a sense of if we were to, do all of the weddings we think that facility could handle once it's all renovated and whatnot? How disruptive is that going to be to the other normal rhythm in the schedule of Waveney House for all of the non-wedding things we do? I mean, are we going to be crowding out or pushing and shoving other
Well, no, because right now the weddings are just, Friday weekends.
Yeah, yeah.
And our weekday events, we still want to make sure that the building is available for all of our normal weekday events.
Okay.
So I
So
don't
there
see
should
any
be a
conflict
minimal
there.
disrupt.
Right.
Yeah, also once somebody's managing a calendar and has
Yeah.
visibility to everything, you should really, I
Right.
think so much of what we focused on was increasing the utilization,
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
certainly not decreasing it.
Yeah, right now, even during the week, I mean, not that we charge any of our, in-house, in-town organizations to be there, but usually they only want one event going on a night. You could
Yeah.
potentially have something going on upstairs and something going on downstairs. So there's a lot of opportunity.
So what's coming to us is capital.
Yep.
And then some operating expense associated with
We'll fine-tune
doing
this
this,
for you.
which
Right.
we think should pay for itself if the event is optimized and you can start to charge a more market rate for a better facility. Okay.
We just wanted you to see
No, it's great.
where we were headed with
And
this.
We also-
do you think that according to this, the projections here, that you're going to get to an operating margin of 44, of a net margin 44% in 3 years?
Depends on what we charge for, what we decide to charge for the rentals,
Yeah, well, you have the revenue ramping up to $500,000.
right? Sweet here.
Who needs private equity when you could invest?
I can't entirely answer that question for you, other than we can spend some more time with this and come up with some real numbers for you.
Yeah, the question is always the probability that this actually happens.
You guys are seeing it, right? These venues are,
Yeah.
yeah. We have a gold mine from what we're told, everybody that we talked to,
Yeah.
they said
It's
you
got
have got,
parking, it's got views.
You've
It's
got
it's-
everything.
It's really
Yeah,
is,
it does have that.
And as-
it does.
Yes, the location is spectacular.
But I think what we've heard is there's not really an option, because if we don't invest in getting it compliant, we can't use it at all.
Right,
And so
Right.
there's not a
Yeah,
lot
but
of.
that's,
But the
but
opportunity.
that was always on the table, whether we used
Yeah.
it for offices or anything
No,
else.
but-
We have to do that work.
But the
make the
opportunity
building,
is to make it a first class. Right now, it's not second class, but it's not what it could be. Because we've been running it as a rec department
Yeah.
venue.
That's right.
Well, by necessity, because you can't use the second floor.
Well, no, you can use the second floor.
And you have to use it by
Well-
going up the stairs, and
It's not at its best. It could
that's
be,
right.
it gets
Yeah.
better.
and who will be on point from the town? Is Tucker? Are you sort of,
Yeah, I'm working. I mean, there's another half of this project that we'd love to work with Sarah and Ellen on going forward to
But from a
actually help design
liaison,
the
it-
website.
It
Yes,
just so happens, we also just hired, Conservancy just hired an executive director,
Right.
who's a Duquesne resident,
right,
who is in the hospitality business.
Right.
And she may have the time to want to do this kind of
could be
position.
help?
We actually thought about B in retirement, B could continue as a part-time person.
B serves that function right now. She's
Right.
the one that interfaces with the brides and does all of that. So she knows what the job is as well.
But what's going to come to us is basically get it compliant and then invest in a little operating expense and the branding and other related things to get it to the point where,
Right.
and it should pay for itself and then some, obviously.
Right.
So I think we get that. Okay.
And this
How
is
about
just,
this?
so go ahead.
I was going to ask about, in the capital budget, there's a $3 million line item for HVAC. Is that only if we go with this upgrade or renovation, or we have to do it anyway?
So last year, Tiger, how much money did we put in the budget to design the HVAC system? There you go, Tiger. Knowing that sometime in the next 10 years, the heating system could fail.
Correct.
It's a hot water, steam, hot water. Steam, the pipes are in the concrete. When it finally fails for good, we're going to put a hot air system in, which will be HVAC from the attic and that probably will be a $2 million item. But until it fails, we're going to have the plan so we could implement it right away.
Right, so we don't get stuck like we did at Lapham.
Right.
Lapham, we got stuck very similar construction. We won't get stuck this time. We'll actually have it designed, ready to go. So at the moment that it's failing or failed, we can go into it.
Yeah, my prediction is that system will be going 10 years from now. It's been going for 105.
Well maintained.
Any other questions?
Can you bring gas to Waveney?
No, well, Eversource doesn't want to do it without us paying to, and it wouldn't save that much money.
It's cost prohibitive. It's actually a half a mile
Wow.
from where the existing
Right.
pipes are
That
now.
makes sense.
Okay.
Oh, my gosh.
Anywhere we come from the high school, Lapham Road, it's a half a mile to get to the house itself.
Okay.
We are looking at the pool, the paddle hut, and Lapham community, but even from that distance, it's even
Yeah.
almost, it's cost prohibitive to get to the house for the amount that we would be actually generating or using. And they would want us to pay that capital cost, and I think it doesn't pay for itself.
Tiger, what about lighting? What's the plan to really make the place light up? It's pretty dull. I mean.
You mean inside or
Yeah,
outside? Oh,
inside.
inside.
Well, certainly outside you could add to, but
Not to the inside lighting, the exterior lighting, all the decorative lamps that are around there, we have a 4-year plan, 5-year plan, to replace all of them.
I know, yeah.
The entire system, all of them are malfunction. We have a plan in our budget for that, but I don't have a plan for waiting for the lighting or any other type of renovation other than what's planned.
Many of the brides who come in and have events there now bring in,
Well,
No.
we did that certainly for Festival Trees, and I can tell you, the place just lights up like
Mhm.
a wonderland. I mean, you wouldn't have even guessed.
well, and the
It's
fact
just
that all our
remarkable.
fireplaces are usable it was a huge thing that we heard from a number of people, that you can use them. And in a winter setting
Yeah,
adds to it as well.
well, it's huge difference.
Okay, we're gonna, unless there are other questions, we need
One
to.
more
on.
question.
Yeah, go ahead,
So
Maria.
this is only related to rental income, obviously. I mean, we haven't really considered catering. Is there any talk about working with a top flight caterer?
Yeah, so you found many places have a dedicated caterer that
Places,
works
yeah.
Right.
with, right now, they work with a list, they have a list of caterers that they work with who are familiar with the building and that kind of thing. We can't really recommend, does not feel comfortable saying, want you to call XYZ caterer. It's just not in municipal government. You can't do it that way. But we talked about, should we have an in-house caterer, that just then can leave supplies there and all of that, because that does work. We found that a lot of the brides are coming with their own bridal consultant or wedding planner. Sometimes that comes with a caterer too. So there's a little bit of overlap.
Yeah, Abigail Kirsch is in
Yeah, so we talked,
Stanford.
yeah, and we spoke with them.
Yeah.
We were doing some of our research.
Okay, thank you both. That was terrific.
Thank you, guys.
you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
To-
Okay, let's start with, I believe, Cheryl, right? You're up first with
We just give Larry screen.
employee
share.
health, and then we'll do land use and then public works.
Is joining us from California.
Hi, everybody.
Hang on,
Good to
Larry.
see everybody.
Larry, she's going to give you sharing rights.
I'm gonna do it in that.
Everyone should have it on their tablets.
Can everyone see that or have reference to it?
It's good. It's good.
You're
Okay,
good.
nice to see everybody. Cheryl, do you want to say a few comments before we get into the?
Sure. Larry is our broker from Frankel Benefits. For those of you who don't know him, he has
Epic,
worked
epic.
Epic.
Epic now, who has worked with the town for over 7 years. And he has worked closely with us to go from being fully insured to self-insured. We have had some pretty good years. He is going to talk about, this year is going to be a very difficult year. We have some major claims that we are looking at. We have a pancreatic cancer, we have a rectal cancer, quadruple bypass, a hip replacement, and blood cancer. So we've got a tough year coming ahead, and he is aware of that in regards to stop loss. So Larry, why don't I turn it over to you
Okay.
and start to talk about the plan?
Why does that say 2020,
It should say 22.
22?
Yep.
Okay, so as Cheryl said, talk a little bit about looking ahead, but as we do every year, I just wanted to provide just a level set of how we're running.
It's not
Tucker, is it on the tablet?
On our tablet for today, anyway.
It wasn't.
It was
I don't
sent
know if it was a
hand-
handout. It wasn't on. It wasn't on our regular.
Can everyone see this slide?
Yeah, it's a little small. Give us a
wanna-
second. We want to
yeah,
see
we
if it
wanna
can be
load
sent
it.
to our tablets
Yeah.
here.
No.
Well, you can walk through the numbers. We're just gonna have to recognize we can't see them yet. Just bear that in mind. If you want to start and give us the overview.
Okay, so, yeah, so as everyone knows, we've had the self-insured program for a while now, and at this time of year, we forecast what we think the town is going to need in terms of costs, specifically related to the town employees here, under the self-insured plan. Under the self-insured plan, we fund our own claims, we pay administrative fees to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we purchase outside stop-loss insurance collectively with the Board of Ed. It's worked out very well over the last few years. As Cheryl mentioned, we have some headwinds with some claimants that are emerging. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But high level, this chart here, what you see here, really the blue and the light gray, this tells you how we're running versus the estimate. So you can see that last year, and then the numbers below show the fields in the chart that basically contain the accrual or the estimated cost, the actual cost, which are the claims funded by the town, the administrative fees and the stop loss insurance, and the IBNR, which is for incurred but not reported. And then if we're running a surplus or a deficit. And then over on the far right, we still have a column if we were still fully insured, but that ship sailed a long time ago. The town made a great decision because you can see cumulatively since 2016, we have saved, we've run actually 1.8 million under the estimate. So looking at the last 2 years here, we ran in fiscal year 21, we ran right on the estimate. And in fiscal year to date, we are running about 5% below the estimate. So we're on an aggregate basis running very well. And that leads us to the conversation for next year. A couple of things, though, I'll also mention briefly while we're on this slide, and Cheryl and I were talking about this afternoon. We've totally inverted the pop. When I first started working with the town many years ago, and then we introduced the high deductible health plan. We now have about, I think it's 177 of our 201 enrolled in the high deductible health plan with the HSA, and only about 24 or so people left in the traditional PPO program. So everybody has done a really good job moving people over to that plan, which is unique, obviously, for a municipality.
Hang on a second. Do we have it yet? Okay. Hey, before you go on, are you projecting that we'll be under budget this year, ending in June?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to say because we still have 6 months.
With these
Yeah.
big claims, we
soon.
just don't know when those claims are going to come forward. So that's.
He was talking down 5%. That's why.
Yeah, we're running under budget
All right.
right now, but we do, as Cheryl said, we definitely have some folks that we're concerned about.
Okay.
But we have the stop loss insurance in place too. So.
Got it.
So this next slide is basically a PwC slide, and in any conversation in terms of looking forward, and we've talked about this in the past, just has to really start with historical medical trend and what the current trends are in healthcare. So Obviously, we're in an environment, as everybody knows, where there's heightened inflation around everything. Healthcare costs have always been increasing at rates higher than inflation. But what this slide is showing over on the far right side is that we're still in an environment where we're assuming about 6.5%, 7% medical inflation. It's in red because of the COVID impact, which is impacting customers in many different ways. So depending on where you are in the country, depending on the demographics of your workforce, COVID is obviously impacting groups differently. And we have had our share of COVID costs under our program. The other thing that's important is this next slide, just to understand what we call leveraging or leverage trend. And this is the and we've talked a lot about this last year with regards to the stop loss renewal. This is just, if we were in the reinsurance business, this would be our main concern right now, where in this example, you have a $250,000 claim on the left, and the client in this particular situation has a $200,000 deductible. So the reinsurer takes 50 and the client takes 200. The next year, the claim using a 12% inflation factor, probably a little conservative, but the client here does not want to take on any more risk, and the claim matriculates to 280,000. So the delta between the 80,000 and the 50,000 that the reinsurer absorbs is 60%. This is the number one issue facing the industry right now, as claims are graduating to unbelievable levels, routinely over $1 million in spend. We have a claim approaching $1 million in the last plan year. I had another client this year. We had a $2.3 million injection for a baby with spinal atrophy. So the good news there was the baby was fine, cured, but the bad news is $2.3 million. So that is the backdrop for the reinsurance. Here, what
Hey,
you
Larry.
see on
Larry, before you, sorry, I was going to ask before, but can you go back to the historical cost trend on 3? Wasn't much of a trend. It looks like a historical cost history with one trend data point. What is our history? How would our chart compare to that?
Your chart's better than this.
Yeah. Could you just redo this chart with ours on it, with that data?
Yeah, sure.
Same years? I'd be curious.
Yeah,
I think-
you guys have been, if we go back, just look at.
We don't have to do it in the meeting. It'd be good to know.
Yeah.
Ever since we've been self-insured, we've always been lower than the fully insured plan estimate.
Right. This would be the perfect chart to show that.
Yeah.
Let's show the.
Yeah, here, going back to this chart, and that's a great point. We'll overlay it. But if you look on this chart on page 2, the accrual column, you can see, and our lives have been pretty consistent, but we were accruing about $5 million in 2016. And last year we accrued 5.6 million. So you can see our trend is well below the market.
Yep.
Yeah, up to now, we've done well.
So that'd be good to just overlay it for us, just to know what that.
And what's happening is, we've talked about this in the past. The fact of the matter is that our town, the demographics, we're not hiring a lot of younger people. Our group's pretty stagnant, and our people are getting older and using more services. I'm not saying we're not hiring any young people, but if we go back and historically look at the people under the plan, it's aging. So here, and Cheryl kind of mentioned this, we're gearing up for a difficult stop loss renewal. Stop loss insurance is just a piece of the program. It's an important piece, but it's not, in terms of size, the size of the claims. So here, what this is illustrating to you is just basically looking back, going back a few years now, just total claims over 50,000, and the stop loss refunds that we received from the reinsurer versus the premium, the second column in from the right, and then what our loss ratio is. So you can see in fiscal year 20, we really cleaned their clocks. Last year, the year we just concluded, we paid $937,000 in premium, and we hit them for $1.9 million in claims. So they lost $1 million plus whatever their expenses are. And then this year, we're not off to a great start. You know, through 6 months, we're already at a 74% loss ratio. As we move into the latter part of the year, the reinsurers typically take more on the chin because people have hit the stop loss or are getting close to the stop loss. So with that being said, this next slide, this is really the all the different components of the program, and reading right to left here. We're actually running about 4% under budget. We have premium accruals. We're running about 2.8 million in cost estimate versus almost 7 million in total self-funded cost. And you can see the red in the middle. We have, as I mentioned before, we already have 5,000 accumulating in this plan year under the stop loss, and we have about another 327 that was paid out this year that was attributable to claims incurred in the prior year. So again, this is why we have stop loss, and in aggregate, the plan is performing very well. But we are gearing up for a tough conversation with the reinsurer. And the other side of it is that we do have the Board of Ed. Some years we help support their program because their claims are high. And other years they help support us when our claims are specifically related to stop loss higher than we thought or projected. So at the end of the day, we've built in a very conservative, we built in even with a 6% adjustment projected for next year, that takes into account a significant increase in our reinsurance cost.
Question, what's our actual budget this year? 2020, 21, 22?
Josh, what's the actual number?
6.5 for the contributions.
And so the increase is 10?
Yeah, 23.
5%.
5.9, okay. So the 6% is.
Six,
exactly what.
2 is
We
5.
put in a budget folder of 5%. When Larry came in with the numbers, which it's still early, he came in at 6%. So
He expects to go
we're
lower.
expecting that to go down a little bit.
Yeah, like we've talked about, we have to build in because we've built in about 18 months of medical inflation into the claims number. So that's a number you'll see evolve as we get closer to the renewal date.
And also understand, Larry, sorry to interrupt you, the library is part of this. So the library are part of these numbers because they are with us.
Oh, not that conversation again.
Yeah, well.
Just
figure
making
it
a
out,
point of
though.
it. Okay. Larry, you good?
Yeah, this last slide just shows you how we ended up last year right on the number, about 98.4% of the expected. So you can see there in the last 2 months of the plan year, though, we really started to deteriorate, and that's carried into this plan year a little bit with regards to our large claimant. So again, we have some work in front of us on the stop loss, but in aggregate, I think we're totally in line with where the market is in terms of inflation, and I don't really foresee any really major burning buildings.
Okay. Anything else?
No, unless
Any
there are
questions for Larry? Or Cheryl? Yeah, Chris.
Yeah. Why is there a different stop loss amount for the town versus the Board of Ed? What's behind that?
The Board of Finance required the Board of Ed to go to 300 about 6 years ago.
So what was the thinking?
So the main reason their stop loss is higher, well, the main reason why there's a different amount is that we're insuring less bodies under our plan. So we have a lower stop loss threshold because we're very concerned about volatility. We're very concerned and still are about volatility in our program because ultimately the employees share in part of the cost. So we really want to maintain a program that's stable. What happened on the Board of Ed side going back was they got a very, very large increase in their stop loss premiums. And the way they mitigated that was they raised the deductible to 300,000. So they paid obviously a significantly lower amount of premium for the higher deductible. At that size group, though, the number of people they have, $300,000 is not unheard of. Certainly can support that level of risk.
And we're still comfortable with having these two different numbers.
Yeah, I think it works. Again, I think it works for each specific entity. They have more bodies. Their demographics are a little bit different than ours. They have more singles. They've got younger, some younger people. You know, the teachers on average are younger, and our group is getting older. So if you look at them separately, I don't think it is wrong to have two different stop loss levels, knowing that we're even though we have, you know, all the money rolls up obviously to one entity, you guys, the mechanics in the program, you know, in terms of the sharing with employees, I think if we ratcheted ours up to you know, way up, we would introduce, especially knowing what we know about the large kids, we'd introduce a lot of volatility to the program.
One quick question, which is, so I get the idea that our next negotiation for stop loss coverage is going to be largely driven by claims history, claims experience, and all that. Are there industry trends also that we need to keep, you know, in other words, are there underwriters exiting this business, or is there still a lot of people writing this business? Because it seems like you said, there are a lot of people taking it on the chin, you know.
That's a great question. And the answer is there are people leaving the industry. I just was on a call with Berkshire Hathaway today, who was one of our underwriters. They are exiting the Northeast. There's consolidation going on in the industry, and they are the problem is in the industry is the severity that I mentioned. These new to market drugs, which are very good. Some of these oncology treatments, which are also very good, are very, very expensive. So there's a lot of pressure now, and you're seeing it a little bit in the property and casualty industry as well. There's definitely a lot of pressure in you know, on the reinsurance market. We have a contract. We've got a special contract that we've negotiated. And this really helped the Board of Ed last year, where we have a maximum rate cap that the insurance company can hit us with, the maximum rate increase. And we have another thing called a no new laser renewal provision. So what that means is if the insurer that we are using wants to come in and say, we don't want to give $150,000 deductible on that person that we know has cancer next year, and it's going to be $700,000. We're going to give you a $700,000 deductible on that person. They're not allowed to do that under our contract. So we've got some built-in protections that, as I said, last year, when the Board of Ed was facing 2 transplant claims, it really benefited. So there's a lot going on in this industry, and there's definitely a lot of insurers taking it on the chin, no doubt about it.
Other questions for Cheryl or Larry? Okay. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
Be well.
Thanks for dialing in.
Thank you.
Thank you for dialing in. So you've got land use and
I have land use and then
Public Works?
DPW.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
we can figure we'd start with land use since it's very quick.
Yep.
So I'm joined on the screen by our Chief Building Official, Brian Platts, our Town Planner, Lynn Brooks Abney, and our Inland Wetlands Director, Kathy Holland. So if there are any questions, in-depth questions on the budget itself or on revenues, what have you, we can certainly defer to them. So the land use budget itself this year stands at $1.221 million. It's up 89,000 from last year, or 7.9%. The overall change in essence is that we had in the budget last year monies for a part-time planner to help with I would say the large amount of work that's in the planning and zoning department. And we're feeling that need actually is increased to the point where we should have a full-time person. So a full-time planner to assist our town planner. We already have an assistant zoning enforcement officer. She's working out very, very well. So that delta, that change right there is basically driving the entire budget. 100%. At that point in time, the rest of it, if you look at it, it's just either salaries associated with that or just minor changes here and there. So I don't know if you have any questions on that at all. And then as far as the revenues go, for the most part, they're remaining relatively flat, while we are seeing an inordinate amount of work coming to the land use departments in the form of permits and work on houses and development. We are trying to be a little conservative on the side and say that, we're not going to ride this for forever. We feel that we should just stay conservative with those numbers. And speaking with Brian and Lynn, we're trying to stay just that. We're trying to stay relatively flat across the board with those. There's a slight shifting in them, but for the most part, it's a flat across the board. Just saying that we're doing quite well this year. We're actually ahead of schedule, but it can't last forever. We're feeling that eventually it'll calm down. So I don't know if you had any questions on either or anything for Brian, Lynn, or Kathleen.
Anyone? And nothing on the expense for me anyway.
No.
And I appreciate the point on being conservative on revenue.
Mm-hmm.
We can't miss.
Yeah.
We can be over. We can't be,
Be under,
can't be.
Correct.
Anybody? I think we're good. Okay.
Good. All right. Brian, Lynn, thank you very much. Kathleen, thank you. So we'll
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to DPW itself. So while I'm sharing the screen in the house, so to speak, here I have my highway superintendent, Mo Zachary. I have our park superintendent, John Howe, and our assistant park superintendent, Todd Decline. In the back corner is our transfer station superintendent, Don Smith, our wastewater treatment facility superintendent, Jim Rogers. I'm sure you've met. And then on the screen, I've got our town engineer, Maria Coplet, and our senior engineer, Joe Zagorinsky.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone's in the house, so to speak. Can everyone see that? And do you have it on your tablets too?
Yes.
Okay. I added a couple of slides, but not necessarily anything out of the ordinary. Basically just duplicate slides to kind of help it flow a little bit. So thank you all first for allowing us to present our budget for this year. I will say that I've been freaking out for about the past month and a half because my number is higher than it's ever been. So I'll be perfectly honest with you. I wasn't comfortable in front of the Board of Selectmen.
One of these years you were due.
I was due. So it's yeah, I said, well, thank you, because that's about all I've got on that. So this is us. We are 58 strong, separated over 8 divisions. Interestingly enough, Larry brought up a point. I put this slide in, I don't know if I wanted to put this slide in, but I put it in because I did an age and experience graphic as far as where we are. We are actually aging, but I look at that as a positive because overall we've got 952 years of experience inside the department. So I had to find something whereby, I've got a lot of guys in the 55 to 56 to 65 range. I'm in it myself, but with age comes experience, right? So I've got to look at it in the form of my concern is succession plan, right? As far as what are we going to do and when the brain drain occurs, right? Because I've got several individuals very close to retirement. What do I do at that point in time? So we are actively trying to recruit from within and plan that type of plan. But as I said, with age comes experience, and I think we're well represented across the board with the number of hours that we have or number of years that we have in. So with that said, my liaison group was excellent. They told me that I got to give a little bit of a backlog or a little bit of a plug. Everyone else does a half an hour plug and 5 minutes of budget. I'm going to do an hour of budget and maybe 2 minutes of plug. But for us, this poster says it all. With Public Works, it starts here, right? Or it actually starts here and ends here, because we kind of do what we consider, what I call first flush to last flush, right? So, so when you brush your teeth in the morning, you hit our wastewater treatment plant, right? And then hopefully you have your breakfast, and then you'll maybe recycle some of your products, or now we're taking in food composting, so you'll utilize our transfer station. At that point in time, the moment that you leave the door, you hit our administration and engineering, because now we're into roads, bridges, drainage, what have you, and you hit our highway department, because you've got to use a road to get wherever you're going to go through town. And then hopefully, you're going to visit the Lapham Center, maybe you come into town to do some business, what have you, and you hit our town buildings. And then by the end of the day, we're hoping that you relax in one of our parks, for our parks and our tree service. And then in the end, you'll go back home, rest, to maybe take out the garbage so it can come to us the next day. And again, brush your teeth at the end, and we make that whole cycle. So in the end, we touch your entire department, your entire life all day long, no matter what. Everyone else there's a couple of facets, we hit it all. So that's us. So to give you an idea of where we are, our overall budget this year is $11.594 million. It's up $695,000 last year, or 6.38%. I kept it flat where I could, and then we had to move where we had to, right? So I give you an idea of where we're trending across for the past, since fiscal 10 to 13. You can see everything's modest growth or flat, overall. And actually some departments have actually decreased. But then I took a look at it and said, okay, well, if I looked at inflation over that exact same period of time, where would we be, right? So I overlaid it here over the top of our highway department, since it's our largest budget or largest account. And then I took a look at what it would be. So I went back to fiscal 7 and started with $2.5 million of, that's what with highway department was at that. So I started the inflation at that point in time, and then ran all the way through 2023 and the projections that they're giving us. And overall, our highway department increased $700,000, but inflation increased $1 million. So we're $300,000 to the good, as far as I'm concerned. And then if I looked at it across the board for every single department and for our overall, we are actually lower. So we actually trend very with it or below it across the board. So overall, I think that for the past 13 years or so, we've done very, very well. And, eventually I had to come to this point where I had to ask for additional monies, and we're at that point. So with that said, I got to give the last plug, because there was the last one in here of the Big Mac. I thought it was probably the best thing, was that in 2000, a Big Mac cost $2.50. Right. But now it's close to $5.67. But if you looked at what it would have been on the CPI, it wouldn't even, get close to $3. But now if you look at actually what it is, what's out there for us and what we're buying, again, if a Big Mac is $5.67, I got some problems trying to buy our materials and things that we need to move forward. But and then if I looked at our overall budget itself and where we are, our salaries are 49% of our overall budget. That includes benefits. That includes the entire package. Our utilities are 13%. And then you get into some other things outside contracts that are necessary, as far as our garbage hauling, our recycling, our sludge hauling, things of that nature. That's another driver at 13%. I looked at it in 21, and in 21, our salaries were at 52%. Okay, so we're actually now seeing the point where we're no longer the largest part. We are the largest part, but we're actually half or less than half. Whereas before we were, and if I looked at it in years prior to that, we would have, the percentage would have been even greater. So we're actually seeing now where our salaries are not even, are not growing with the rest of what's that we're seeing out there as far as our costs, our cost drivers. So now if I just get into each department itself, I'll start with administration. It's at $320,000. It's up $8,000. It's a 2.8% increase. And to be perfectly honest with you, last year I pooched the overtime estimate. I had $1,000 in there, and I average about $9,000 a year. So I had to increase that change by about $8,000 to make up the difference. So that's really where it's at. And that's really for my administrative assistant, Christy Reddy. She does a fantastic job. She's here early. She stays late. She does whatever she needs to do. And there's a little bit of overtime associated with her. So she's the only one basically in our department, the supervisor staff that actually is on the hourly rate. You have any questions on administration? Are we okay? The,
Hey, Tech, I'm sorry, I do have one fast question.
Sure.
Maybe I missed it. This page, which was the 6.38,
yeah,
2023 is 11.594 million.
what did I say?
Well, then we went to the next page and it's 11.619.
Yeah, I'm off by, right, I'm a little off. I didn't go back and do the analysis again when it got tweaked between one budget and the next. to be
Okay,
perfectly
so this
honest.
is the
I'm-
number, the 11.6.
The 11,
Okay.
no, the 11, the first one I gave you, that
11.9.
breakdown, I just didn't go back through and change every single line
Oh,
to
okay,
make
all
up.
right.
There's
So
like
you gotta pay
700.
attention.
It's about- I'm glad you are, because I actually noticed, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to talk through that.
That's
I was
all
wondering
right,
if anybody's
okay.
paid attention.
It went
but
down,
I'm
that's
glad
good.
you did.
Yep.
Yeah, it just basically, I didn't go through and change every single line, 700 lines to
No
make that,
worries.
you know, I didn't think it was gonna change that percentage that much. But thank you for picking that up. I appreciate it. That's the problem with giving you the slides too. So you can't, you know, because you can always go back for reference. The next one is engineering. And engineering, if you look at the graph, engineering and administration, they just part and parcel with themselves. We've had a couple of staff shifts here and there. That's why you'll see up and down, right? So in fiscal 10, I went from engineering to the administrative to the assistant director. And then later on, when I hired the town engineer, I took that out of the salary and brought it back to engineering. But overall, if you look at it, we're relatively flat across the board. If you look at that from 10 to 23 for both departments combined. And this one, the change is $7,000. It's just under 2%. And I have an increase in one salary line item. I did an analysis of all my supervisory staff and then looked at what we were being paid. And then our basically, I won't call it our district reference group, but basically what are the surrounding towns paying? And my senior engineer was low compared to what he's being asked to do. And the projects that he's running, he runs all of our bridges. He's going to run our police department renovation. He's doing yeoman's work. And I felt that he needed a bump of $5,000. So that's why you see that I'm at 363,190, but in your numbers, you're at 355,319. I asked in the Board of Selectmen and I missed the change at that time. When it didn't get included at that time, and I'd like to see it included. I think the selectmen, I think we just missed it, to be perfectly honest with you.
Josh, do you have that?
No, my number is the
355.
The approved one?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, you just add that to our list of tweaks.
thank you. Yeah. So then if I move on to town buildings is at $1.223 million. It's up $173,000 or 16.5%. Later on, you're going to see that we had the town hall annex separated from the town budgets, right? So, and we wanted that originally. The Board of Finance had actually asked for that to see exactly how much the town hall annex or the teen center would cost us annually. It costs us about $40,000 annually to run it. So we were tracking those numbers. Now we're at the point where 3, 4, 5 years into it, there's no need to actually have it sitting off by itself under its own separate accounting. So I was asked to draw it back into the overall. So that 773 actually includes $40,000 from a separate budget. So now I'm looking at $133,000 change. And that predominantly is, if you look at our trend over time for our outside contractors specifically, I looked at our 5-year average, and every year we're coming back to you for a special appropriation. And I'm going to have to come back probably next month for that exact reason, because we're low. And then based upon our infrastructure and the needs that we have in repairing the buildings that we have, we're always overrunning that line, and I'm coming back. I'd rather not come back. I'd rather just give the money and then stay, because the stress involved with trying to come back and ask for the money, be perfectly honest with you, if it's a 5-year average, if it's a trend, I'm not going to be able to get it down. It's just going to go up at that point. Our buildings are getting older. We're renovating some of them, but overall, each one of them is getting older every single year, and we're going to have to put a little bit more money in. And the trades that we hire, their salaries are going up, right? We don't have any staff that do plumbing, heating, air conditioning, anything of that. We actually hire out for that. Electrician, we're not, the Board of Ed has their own in-house staff. We do not. So everything we do is outsourced. And as their rates increase, our rates have got to increase commensurate wise. And then the other thing that we're looking at is we added a couple more properties for us to clean. We brought in Webinary, we brought in a couple of the outside bathrooms, because now they're being used a little bit more. And now we're actually trying to have them open year round. So the bathrooms next to the ice rink are going to be open year round. We're looking at, eventually we'll hopefully put in a bathroom over by the powerhouse. That will be added on. So, and then in the end, also our utilities, we're seeing across the board, our utilities are increasing. So I have a slide on the utilities I'll give you, because we're, usually we buy every year. We listen to our consultants and tell us exactly what we're going to do for our electricity. We buy out, far out for our electricity. We buy out for our fuel. We buy out for our diesel and our gas and our propane. Yet we haven't established a rate for gas yet, natural gas. But when we looked and I tracked this over the past 10 years or so, Bill Osman, who does the majority of this buying, he talks to our consultant, talks to me, talks to Kevin for selectmen, and then we make a decision with the CFO as to whether or not to buy and go forward. And overall, for 10 years, we've done very, very well as far as it goes. So if you look at this slide, what we've purchased is in the blue, our rate, and what Connecticut's average was is in the orange. So we've done very, very well. We had 2 years, 15 and 16, where we got out of cycle a little bit. We normally buy with the Board of Ed. At that point in time, we got out of cycle a little bit. We got jammed up. But this year they're telling us to hold and wait and not purchase. So we're actually looking at a rack rate later on in the budget. That's why you're seeing the numbers up, because we're trying to be a little bit conservative on those numbers, because we don't know exactly what they're going to be, because we haven't pre-bought yet. But our consultant is telling us to hold because of all the disruption that's in the market at present. We don't want to buy. So we're waiting. So we've got a couple of contracts that are going to expire, and we've got to take into consideration that in the latter 6 months of the year for each one. But he's done very well for us in the past, and I think we should kind of stick with him and go forward. So like I said, the utilities might be a little bit overstated, but we're trying to be a little bit conservative on that regard. Has anybody got any questions on town buildings?
I actually,
Sure.
what are the efficiencies, if any, on combining the ADA upgrades with the bathrooms? We've only got the 990. We just had the presentation. Have we looked at that?
We originally, so you're on the capital side now, but
Yeah, I am, but I'm just.
So as far as that goes, we had originally, if we had grouped them all together at the time that we did the bidding, it was $160,000 savings to do it all in one shot.
It's a lot.
If we had it, right? So we can go back to him and say, if we're going to group the 990 and the 1.7 together, what would we see as a savings? But I can tell you that at the time of bid, if we had given to him the entire project in one allocation, we would have had $160,000 savings. But at that time, there wasn't a pallet to do that. There was a pallet to keep it in the 3 phases, which we are doing.
Well,
but I can go back and ask that question.
It
really comes down to what the Board of Finance would like, and we can certainly ask that question, and we can revisit that.
Okay.
Any other questions on the operating of town buildings?
Yeah, on the property cleaning and the plumbing and so forth, would we be able to save any money by insourcing that as opposed to using outside?
It's a great question. So overall, we don't trip on an annual basis. We don't trip the amount of money to actually pay for the salary, right? So, we're at $45,000, $65,000 a year. That's not going to pay for one person to come in and work. And then when we're hiring out, we're actually getting 2 to come in, right? So usually they have a partner, they're coming in pairs. So in essence, we don't have that. We were looking at the possibility of hiring an electrician, right? Because an electrician usually has other skills, but we're not at that level yet. And at one point in time, we did have in-house cleaning staff in the town hall, and then we felt it was better overall. That was during Judy's term, and then we actually went out at that point in time and started outsourcing. We are on a 5-year contract for cleaning, and what you're seeing in that rate is actually now the increase in the minimum wage. So you're starting to see that. So, they kind of on a 5-year contract, they'll build it into the contract, and it might not necessarily be equitable across, but then, because they'll front load being low, and then they'll start to tack that back in. But that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that now that the increase in the minimum wage is kicking in. So it's not only that we're adding properties, it's also that we're seeing that the wage increase is going to be affecting us as well.
We have to add benefits.
Well, that's.
401k. I mean, things start to add up.
That's right.
It's
We
not-
looked at it for years.
It's not just
and
the
nobody
salary. It's
wanted-
I got to do the salary and right. And the salary and it just doesn't come to that level. But it's a great question.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Is there any capacity from the Board of Education side? If I know they've hired those technical experts.
We sat with the Board of Ed. Cheryl's not here anymore. Cheryl and I sat with the Board of Ed a year ago or so, maybe a year and a half ago, to try to look at that. But it was it was kind of difficult because they're busy there, right? So it was really Joanne and Dan were saying, well, we could utilize them and maybe, on the one-off, but we can't necessarily try to share because they're busy at the schools, right? So we would be trying to pull them, and there would be a competing at that point in time. So, but we did sit and try to figure out, is there a synergy? And at present, there isn't. If our level of work increases, and they might, and then we get to the point where we get to a point and their level is increasing, we might be able to get one person out of the two, right? And then share. But right now, at their levels and what we need, there wasn't the opportunity, but thank you. Todd, we good?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. I was told to have an hour, so I'm trying to hit the 9 o'clock mark. On the highway department, it's a $72,000 increase or 2.2%. And we have adjustments in our salary lines associated with our union contract. That'll go to the town council tomorrow for ratification. It was already ratified by the union. And we have a couple of changes in rates and changes in descriptions. And then we have just an overall increase in our utilities. I did increase one item for Mo's, whereby our outside contractor line increased by $15,000. That we use that across the board, either for drainage or mostly for snow removal in the downtown, right? So we try to figure out how many times we're gonna have to remove snow in the downtown. I'd added one more day. One more day is around $15,000 in case we've got snow in the downtown, and it's very important for us to get it out so that we can keep the downtown vibrant. But it does cost us to bring in all outside contractors and do that, one fell swoop in one night. It's around $15,000 a clip. So I added that back in. I cut it out a couple of years ago to try to get us to a zero when we were asked to be at zero, but that's a little too conservative at that point in time.
How are you doing on this budget, on the current year?
We're doing okay.
Yeah.
I've gotten a couple of hits on the building side. Like I said, we're gonna have to come back for that. And then I was just sitting with Mose today, and on his side, he's got a little bit. We're basically tapped on our overtime now for the year, and that doesn't even include the Super Bowl Sunday where they had to come out Super Bowl Sunday and then Monday. Sunday's double time, so they had to come out for that in the morning. So that'll hit the next payroll, and we'll see that. He does have savings on one salary line because we haven't fulfilled that salary line. So I think that what he needs to carry for the rest of the year minus that salary line, I think will be okay. But we are seeing that. And then I've got a couple of other hits for our repairs of mobile equipment. Lost a transmission on a loader. It's $36,000, crazy money, but it's one of those things where the unit's not that old and we should replace it. That's an unforeseen. So I've got a couple of those that we're looking at. So there, any questions on highway? Other than that, thank you. The transfer station is a $60,000 increase. It's at $1.7 million. It's about 3.7%. I've got a slight increase in the salary lines again. And then we have two of our contracts are up for renewal this year, our recycling and our bulky waste. Those are both on 2-year contracts. They'll be up this year as of June 30. We'll go back out. And we put in a $20,000 hold or a line increase for both of those to see what's going to go on. But our feeling is we will get, there will be an increase, but we'll try to mitigate through the bidding process, but we're looking at probably $20,000 per. And then I have a slight increase in the overtime. If you remember, we went from a 4-man crew to a 3-man crew. You still got to be able to staff it on a Saturday, or during, times when someone might be out sick or on vacation. So at that point in time, I have to pull from other departments. And at that point in time, so I need a little bit more on the, we were trending a little bit low on that number. We needed a little bit just to keep with our minimum staffing at the transfer station itself. Okay. On the parks maintenance side, John's budget is $2,087,000. It's up $166,000 or an 8.67% increase. We have a change. Last year, you were generous enough to offer us a part-time employee, actually a full-time employee. I took the part-time employee. Some people say I shouldn't have taken the part-time employee. I should have taken the full-time guy. But we've proven the fact that it actually works very well for us. We're actually seeing an increase in our services and a decrease in some of our extra work or in our overtime lines, especially during sidewalk snow removal, things of that nature. So we would like to then now that we know that it actually is working and we've got a suitable amount of work for the gentleman, and then we can keep him on. He's working quite well for us. We'd like to change that to a full-time status. So we'd be reducing the part-time line and then increasing to the full-time status line. So that's our change there. And then we have an increase in our professional services line That's basically to prepare Mead Park, the tennis courts for Mead Park, right, every year. Last year, we put a bonus in to say, hey, we want to get it open early because we were always fighting almost into July to try to get the tennis courts open. We were, the people who wanted to use the courts were very unhappy with that. So we felt that if we put a bonus in, let's see what will happen. We put a bonus into the bidding structure, and we were actually probably one of the first ones open, right? So, which was fantastic. It was, the public was well served. Tennis is booming. According to Bill Kappa, listened to his presentation from recreation. I think it's up 132% or something like that. It's actually had a resurrection. So it's doing quite well. And we were asked again to try to do the exact same thing. And this year, given the amount of increase that Mead was getting, we actually probably needed an additional servicing somewhere in the middle of the summer. So we added that in. It's around $4,000 to come back in and try to then fine grade it and make them back, make them nice so that they don't degrade too far later on. So we have the increase in that professional services. And then I've got an increase in our outside contractors and our outside grass treatments. The outside contractors, we're looking at a $25,000 increase. And that's to take over the work at Webinary. It was predominantly done underneath the recreation department. We're trying to move all parks maintenance under parks, and then recreation stay under recreation. So there's a $25,000 change there. And then I've got a change on our outside grass treatments for not only our purchasing of our seed, but also for our fertilizer. Seed's gone up 40%, the fertilizer's gone up 17%, and the labor's gone up 5%. So overall, just in that one line, you're looking at, a large increase, but if there's nothing we can do, because that's exactly what the markers are telling us now. So, with seed going up 40% and the fertilizer, even the organics didn't even go up as much as the synthetics. So we're trying to now parlay and see how much organic we can use versus the synthetics. But still, we're looking at quite a large increase across the board. And then we have some small.
Hey, Tiger?
Yes.
Just one quick question. With the opening of the pickleball courts of Mead, is that costing you any additional money to support that, or that's kind of low maintenance in cost?
It's quite low maintenance. We've got to go out and blow them off, and then we were actually asked to open them because once the snow was off, we were asked to open them up for part of the winter season. So we did once the snow melted. But it's no, the maintenance isn't any greater than what was already there, the court that was there, but much more utilization, I should say.
Right. So it's a positive, overall positive for the town
Absolutely.
with little cost, you're saying? Maintenance
Absolutely.
going through. All right, good.
I would say the costs were pretty much relatively flat for that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. We okay on parks?
Mhm.
Thank you. So the nature center, we pay the utilities of the nature center. We're just seeing an increase across the board. As I mentioned, we're being a little conservative on that, especially for our fuel costs. But we're seeing it's a $15,000 change. So from 60 to 75,000. I'm hoping that number is going to come down as we get a little bit, as we get farther out now. So, we're budgeting for 18 months from now, right? But, I'm hoping that as it dials forward, we'll see that number come down a little bit across the board. And then the next one is town utilities. We're looking at a 3% increase. This is primarily for our hydrant service and our street lights. So we pay a per inch foot fee to Aquarian, and also a per hydrant fee to Aquarian for their fire service. And then we pay basically a lease on all the streetlights, and that pays for not only the electricity, but also the maintenance thereof. So if a street light goes out, I put in a service request and Eversource comes out and takes care of it. Our staff doesn't have to take care of it. But in that, we're looking at approximately a 3% increase across the board. We're trying to track that number and see, but they, in essence, give us a letter in February saying, this is what we think is going to happen, but we're asking Pura, and then what they got to go through and ask Pura. We've historically kept a 3% increase in there. We've done quite well. So we're just like to maintain the 3% increase. I think we'll be fine as we go forward. They haven't set their rates yet. Any other questions on utilities? Next is tree service. It's up, $90,000 at 20% over last year. But if you look at the graph, we're now just coming close to the number that we were actually at in fiscal 10 and the years prior. We were at $550,000 in fiscal 10 and the years prior to that, and we had gone down, and then we're coming back up again. I added $50,000 to the highway line. That's for tree work in and along our road network. So if you look at both sides of the street, we got 125 miles of road, so 250 curb line miles. So, and then I added another $25,000 in our parks, and then $15,000 for maintenance. And the maintenance can actually be used for tree planting as well. So it's not just pruning and aid to a tree that might be suffering, things of that nature, but also we could utilize it for tree planting. Historically, what happens with our tree warden is somewhere around April, May, June, we start saying, whoa, 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 and we put the brakes on for May and June. And in essence, that's, I've got trees that really should come down, and I'm trying to wait and see, okay, which ones have to come down. And I don't want to get into the guessing game where I'm trying to say, don't put out a bid in June. So one bid costs us around $25,000 a year. I don't want to get into that point where May and June, I'm saying, don't put out a bid because we don't have the commensurate money associated with it. So given the fact that in 10, we were at 550 and we're back to that same level again, I felt comfortable increasing it to that point because the phone calls aren't stopping and the need isn't. While Eversource is doing a really nice job maintaining their lines, they're only on one side of the street, right? So in essence, and they're not in any of our parks. So, and our tree canopy just in essence only gets older. So
Is this outsourced
completely
tree service? Yeah,
completely
this is
outsourced.
truly.
We have a
You have
tree
a
warden.
program and he puts together the plan. There's a roadmap for what needs to be done and priorities and.
Yeah, he drives the street, and then we listen to resident calls, the highway department, the parks department, give him feedback all the time. And then what he sees and what he sees, what we see, and then what the residents see. It's basically what you're looking at. But yeah, it's all outsourced. And then we have every one of our bidders, we have about 7 on the bid list. They are mandatory that they have to be part of our emergency tree service. So they take a week and they rotate a week on, and then they're off, and then they get called on for another week. We have a schedule for 6 months. The police department understands it. So then they have to actually be on call for us at night. So if there's a call by the police department or by us, we can call someone and they come straight out and take care of it. So you're not allowed to bid on the gravy if you're not going to be willing to take the emergency services work.
So this was flat for 10 years.
It was actually higher in 07 and then it went
Yeah,
down.
I'm having a hard time
from
going
010.
back.
It was actually
Yeah.
much higher. Yeah.
And on an inflation adjusted basis. it
And
would
that's
be a lot.
without inflation and all the additional.
Tiger, remind us, where do we come out on ARPA funds for trees? Because we talked about planting more trees. We don't plant enough trees.
Right. We had talked about that. We certainly could. I think that was a great suggestion. We haven't put any money in for it. I did add 15 into this budget. But we could.
But you said
15 for planting?
15 for planting. Well, it's tree maintenance, but it's really, I could use it for planting, but ARPA, if we wanted to.
we take down trees. We don't add trees.
Mhm.
We don't replace trees.
Right. We actually, we work with our service organizations, right? So the
Sure.
beautification league, garden club, other people who want to plant a tree, for the most part, and then sustainability or sustainable CT committee went out and got a $15,000 grant. So we planted 15 trees at Waveney. But in essence, we're not necessarily planting what we're removing. Without the help of the outside service organizations, we're not doing it. We had a $20,000 line item in our capital budget back when John was a tree warden, which was 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and it was in for 1 year and it was out. So it came in $20,000 and then it left.
Didn't spend it fast enough.
Right. So, but as they say, the best time to plant the tree was yesterday, right?
Yeah,
And then
right.
The next best time is today. So,
But why wouldn't we do ARPA funds for trees?
I can't see a reason why you wouldn't.
But you said, how many trees can you plant?
That's
Top of my head.
No, you said you couldn't plant $100,000 worth of trees.
I could not plant. No, that's 100+ trees. We
Right.
wouldn't be able to do it. So because we plant them with the Parks Department, the Highway Department, and
We don't
wouldn't be able to plant 100.
We don't have to do it all at once.
I could
20 a
plant
year,
20.
20 a year,
Yeah.
25 a year.
We have 2 years more on the.
2.5,
Yeah,
yeah.
2.5. So
20?
we could possibly, yeah.
20 to 30 was what I had in my head. Yeah. So 20, 25, you can say 20.
So you added 15, as you said already.
I added 15 to the maintenance line. Yeah, it can certainly be used for that. right? It can be used for, when we instituted the maintenance line, it was maintenance and then replacement, right?
Is that
It's a
on
tree
the,
couldn't,
on the
so-
ARPA list?
We had talked about adding it to the
Talked
list.
About it, yeah.
Right, I don't,
Where did
we
we
didn't-
end
we
up
didn't-
on that?
right,
We haven't done it yet.
right.
I just want to have that conversation
Absolutely.
in this context.
Even like you said, 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
Isn't it hard to get, isn't it hard to get them to? Trees? Yeah. At present, yeah, depending upon what you want, yeah. Yeah, we have to, yeah, we're searching. Yeah, so it's the exact same problem with supply, right? But I can certainly task the tree warden with taking a look at areas and then talk to a couple of other
Oh,
groups.
that's
and
a
see
good
where they're
use of
gonna
ARPA funds.
Yeah,
That's consistent with, all the,
go. Okay.
Along the state highways, you don't do the tree work, right?
No. The state
So
does.
all those dying trees there on South Avenue over by the Y and the Saks, those are all taken down by the state.
That's
Right?
by the state, yeah, and then they're nice enough to leave us the stump.
Yeah, I know.
So we
Yeah,
get to take
that's
the stump
right.
out.
And they
Yeah.
didn't cut down the dead branches over the road, but other than that.
Yeah, no, the state route is them. We are looking at trying to replant trees along there. There was a phase one that was done by the Beautification League a number of years ago that took on South Avenue that went from Cherry Street to Bank Street, and they would like to see Bank Street to Farm Road planted as well. They have a plan for phase two that was never implemented. I think that would be a nice addition because we are losing all those street trees through there. There's virtually, if you look from Bank Street to Farm Road, there's not much in the canopy there in that grass shell. So that the Beautification League has presented that or come to us with that thought. I think that would be a nice addition to
that
move
would be
forward.
lovely, yeah.
Do we have
Funny
trees?
how the ARPA funds get spent.
Yeah, do we have trees in the budget for the parks
No,
to plant trees?
no. Right. That's it. The tree warden budget takes care of the trees.
Right. You
So
know,
no, we have
besides
no-
the street trees, which we don't replace, we have park trees that are,
Right.
The money to plant the trees comes out of the tree warden.
Right.
Or donations.
Exactly. So I can use the 15,000 additional for in a park or along the roadside, depending. We do try to work with the homeowner. Sometimes we're able to work with the homeowner and see if we can do something, with them.
but it's in our right of way.
It's in our right of way, but yeah, a lot of times we take down a tree, the homeowner would like to replant something and they try to get the right tree in the right place. A lot of times it's the wrong tree that's grown up into the canopy, then it's been hacked to death and then it dies off. So we try to get the right tree in the right place. If we're looking at an area where we get the void, we try to really hard to look at that. But you are right. We spend $500,000 a year on removal and virtually no money on replacement.
Right.
And that's been the operations for quite some time.
And we have a tree disease that's going around for,
Right, we are losing all of our ashes. We're gonna start losing some others as well as those come in. Predominantly about 75% of our removals this year have been ash.
Just a
And the
question.
Beaches so far?
Hmm?
Beaches so far?
Beaches there, some of them are suffering, some are not. We're taking a look and then we have, we got a Dutch elm disease. We got a couple of other things that are out there as well. So
When you replace trees, do you ever do non-native or are they all native trees?
they're mostly, it's mostly a native tree, right? So we try to stay away from no invasives. And then if it's getting that discussion is kind of interesting. I had that discussion this morning or yesterday as far as what's considered native, right? And what you would want like in a pollinator pathway, right? They'd like you to have native species, but if they're attracted to some type of bush that might not be native, but is not invasive, right? And with global warming, it might necessarily work really well now. And it's a large tree attractant or a bee attractant at that point in time. Why wouldn't you plant it, right? So we have a hard time saying it's all native, but we, definitely non-invasive. And then we try to stay with, try to stay with what's in keeping with our neighborhood, so to speak. We have some non-native trees in our right of way, that were planted overall. And if those go down, some are in a grove, right? So you would want to replace that in kind. I wouldn't want to replant it differently, but we are trying to put elms back on Elm Street and cherries on Cherry Street and, things like that. So
Tucker, just a general question. This is a good place to have it. We've got increased costs that are probably labor in forever, right? I mean, add a person, they're going to be there next year, right? So we're adding permanent costs in some areas. Some of it's temporary. Use some.
So yeah, I just want my water.
Some of it's temporary, or could be utilities, could be something who knows what it'll be a year from now, fuel or whatever. Is this the new level though, you think, for trees? We're gonna go to from 4 to 5 and stay at 5?
I think we could, yeah, we were pretty good, I just think that we're missing that last 1-2 months, right? That's where I'm at right now. I'm missing that last 1-2 months, and we've been missing it for a number of years now, right? Where we've had to struggle to get one in, and then really, and I that just makes you uncomfortable that look, he's got a list, and if,
Never
God forbid something happens,
Yep,
right?
yep. Okay.
Any other questions on tree service? All right, so I'll go to my favorite budget because this one's 0. It's just the town hall annex. This one got rolled in to town buildings.
Great slide.
And then
No
we
inflation comparator I noticed on this page.
What?
No inflation.
No inflation. No, sorry, I didn't give it to you. So then the next one is the sewer plant. Jimmy's at 1,368 million. He's up $49,000 or a 3.73% increase. And what basically it's driven by 2 lines: our grit removal, which is kind of basically self-explanatory, and our outside sludge hauling item. We are in the middle of a 5-year contract of outside sludge, and we're just looking at the annual increase that we have for that. Overall, the rest of it, if you look at that trend line with the wastewater plant, I don't think it could have been better placed as far as it goes. But overall, the plant's working well. And I don't know if you have any questions on sewer operations.
Not today.
Not today. Excuse me. So we'll segue into capital. This year, our capital is $12.5 million. There is actually a $10 million line item of a marker in there for the police department. I didn't include it only because it's an anomaly inside the budget and it would just kind of throw everything off. But it is a $3 million increase over last year, and I'll run you through each one as we go forward. So if I look at the administration and engineering budget overall, it's $3.73 million. It's down from 5.688 from last year. We have our pavement management program. I'll give a plug to our pavement management program. What you see on the screen is basically an analysis that we had done by an outside company in 2019. They took a look at all of our roads again and gave us a pavement and condition index at that time. And in 2019, if you imagine, Eversource was in here, right? So they were already here kind of affecting our roads. But overall, if you look at it, our PCI, their range was, they said we were at an 86. I still have us at like an 84 mid range, 84, trying to get to the 85, but I'll take their 86. We had 1.2% below critical condition and 98.8% above critical condition. So we were doing very, very well. And if you look at this slide and you see anything that's in there that was the poor range, as far as orange, we've already paved those, right? So Fieldcrest and Village are done, River Street's done, a couple of other small areas are done. And then anything in the yellow has pretty much been taken care of as well. Old Studio Road, we'll take care of Mortimer, Brinkerhoff, and Lockwood next year. And then anything that is yellow that we didn't take care of will be taken care of next year. So overall, we're doing very, very well. It's just a question of we have to continue to maintain what we have, right? So that's why we're looking at the same amount of funding, which has been the same amount of funding since 2005 when Mose and I first came here in 2004 for the paving initiative. We got $2 million, $2.5 million at that point. We're still at the $2.5 million mark almost 20 years later. So then if we look at the next thing I want to talk about is we have our bridges. We're looking at a 2 to 3 year plan for our bridges. As far as this year, we'd like $75,000 for engineering. We have about 25 bridges that are under 20 feet in length. And I'm figuring about a $3,000 per engineering cost for each one. And then I'll have to then come in and do some maintenance on each one of them, right? We've done a very good job. If you look at this slide here, in 2010, out of the 27 larger structures that we had 13 of them that were yellow or red, which means that their condition rating was a 5 or below. Right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, they were a 5 or below. If you look in 2021, we have 2. And both of those are kind of in the pipeline. We have the Bridge of Collins Pond, which is actually under design right now. And we actually have monies in our budget for construction for next year, hopefully. And then Nursery Road. And Nursery Road, while it's shown as condition rating is somewhere between a 4 to a 6, its sufficiency rating is a 96.6. So we're still waiting for that structure to have some problems before we go in and replace it. Right now, it's on a 50% federal bridge program, which means that we'll get 50% of the funds back. If we, if we wait a little bit longer and we get the sufficiency rating drops a little bit more, hopefully it goes to an 80-20, which is normally what we've been doing. The 50% with all the state requirements on it is very difficult for us because it drives up the cost. At an 80-20 mix, it's a much better mix for us. So Nursery Road at a 96% sufficiency rating, there's no reason to take it out at present, but we are looking at it. But overall, everything, all of our bridges now are in the green, and now we're looking at doing exactly what we did with our road maintenance. Was now we got to maintain them, right? A lot of them are 10 years out, 10 years old, 20 years old. Believe it or not, I built a bunch of them in 1998 when I first came here, and I can't believe that they're 20 years old now, but they're 20 years old out of a 50-year lifespan. So we've got to do some work on them just to make sure that they make that 50 or beyond, is really our thought, so that they don't deteriorate. And then I have $300,000 in for our parking lots. This is a map of our parking lots. We have 62 municipal lots in town. Believe it or not, 62 separate lots. So we're looking at that $300,000 per annum. This year, we've almost got to start looking at some of the ones that are not necessarily utilized by the public, but are still utilized by our staff and still necessary. So I've got the pavement structure at the transfer station, the highway department, and the wastewater plant is deteriorating to the point where it's got to be replaced. I've got issues there, and I've got issues at other parking lots. Mead Park is another situation. Lapham Community Center, it's got the western parking lot there needs work, and the original parking lot needs work. So there's work across the board, but overall, with 62 lots at $300,000 a year, we will maintain our PCI. So that's basically what we want to do, is maintain our PCI. So if we stay at that funding level, we'll maintain our pavement condition index as we go forward. And then the next one, this is our sidewalk condition index. In 2019, we did the exact same thing. This one, we're a little bit behind the scale, but we've been adding money into the mix. So we'll see these numbers increase at a $300,000 per year funding level. That's going to see our sidewalk condition index increase. For $185,000 a year, we stay status quo. At $300,000, we increase. So our SCI right now is a 61. A lot of these sidewalks that you see are in play. We've actually done Fieldcrest and Village. They're complete. Mortimer, Brinkerhoff, and Lockwood, they're complete. We'll be doing the entirety of Park Street with a state grant, and then we'll be putting in a new sidewalk on Richmond Hill. And then others throughout here will be taken care of as we go. So there's another one. The one in the middle of town is Pine Street. We're waiting for Eversource Gas to come in and do Pine Street. Then we'll come in and do an entire streetscape and take care of Pine Street as well. And then if you look at what we're trying to do as far as new construction, this is a picture of our 2014 POCD. And this was the sidewalk map that was in it and what they felt where the sidewalk expansion should go. And almost every single red line in here, except for the one on White Oak Shade, is in play. It's either been constructed or it's under design or moving forward at that point in time. So it's either been to P&Z for an 8-24 and then working its way onto design, or it's design going to construction, or it's already been constructed. So we have very little in this that is not in play. I would say that that's probably the one on White Oak Shade. While it's been asked by residents, it's the only one that we don't have in play at present. So we're doing a very good job trying to stay current with what our plan of conservation and development was from 2014. I think that by the time the new one comes in 2024, this map will completely change and will be almost all green at that point in time. So with that, I have $300,000 on our sidewalk maintenance. Again, $300,000 will allow us to increase our sidewalk condition index. It's a good number. It's a workable number for us as far as managing it, and then we can move forward. And then
just a quick question.
Sure.
The north side of Farm Road.
North side of Farm Road. It's a great question. Did you ask me that before? You asked me that before, right? You did, right? Because I was like, wait a minute, somebody else knew it before. So yes, that one's in play as well.
Yeah.
We did Fieldcrest and Village, and I did small spurs through there, but I'd like to do the entire stretch.
Yeah, Fieldcrest and Village are in fine shape.
They're perfect now. Yeah.
And the other side, the south side next to the school is okay.
Is okay, right? Yeah. But the bituminous walk from basically Main Street all the way to South Avenue is in need of being taken out and redone. Yeah. You are right.
So that's on the
that's in play. Yeah, it's either going to be this year, depending upon how everything works with Eversource gas coming in, and whether or not I can get state approval on some of the ones that I want to do, say up Owen Oak Ridge. Want to take care of that one because that one is actually in a lesser condition or worse condition than Fieldcrest and than Farm Road. So I'd like to take care of that. But if I can't get the permit going forward there, we've been working a year with the state on that so far. Then I'll come back and I'll do that. We'll shift and we'll come to that.
Have all the gas installations on Farm Road gone in then that would delay things or?
I'm hoping that they're complete. Yeah, they're coming in now in small dribs and drabs, you know, but it's the moment I touch it is the moment that somebody calls and says that they want to have gas.
Of course.
To be perfectly honest with you,
They can also tunnel under it.
They can. We had them tunnel under when Aquarian Water came into. We had just finished the sidewalks on Brinkerhoff, Mortimer, and Lockwood, and Aquarian Water came in and said they wanted to do the water. We made them tunnel underneath each one. I think I lost 4 panels, but that was because the valve was inside the panel. I think I lost 4 panels out of every single house that was there, which is not bad, right? Overall, but yeah, we can ask them to tunnel at that point in time.
Thank you.
So then,
What's this blue line going through from Owen Oak to Weed?
which is that one
The
on the sidewalk one you're talking?
sidewalk side, yeah.
Sorry, I got off of that slide. That blue line. Oh, excellent question. So that's a 1/4 mile radius and a 1/2 mile radius around the train station because that was what the POCD was focusing on.
No, I'm talking about the dark
dark
blue
blue
line,
upper
upper
left.
left-hand
A
corner.
dark blue line. Oh, that's the path. That's the part of the green link, right? So that's the path that leads from Weed Street over by Irwin through a private parcel, through the nature center, through the land trust, through the nature center and over to 124.
You
So
don't maintain that. You're not doing it.
we don't do anything. It's just there as a link, but we can't pave it or anything, but it's a trail that's maintained. The land trust maintains theirs and the nature center maintains theirs. So
Actually, that's a great trail. I used that
yeah,
for a while.
yeah. So that's part of the whole green link system that we're trying to develop.
25 years to get here.
Yeah.
Oh, you
It's a
know,
long walk, Judy.
good
Huh?
things.
I know. but
Tiger,
it
just on
did-
this, just to wrap up on the sidewalks, you
Yeah.
said the current condition 61.
It's a 61.
What
yeah.
does this get us? I mean, a year from now, we do this money and we're at
It's
61.
yeah, no, we'd be at like a 63, 64.
All
And
right.
each year we
Chipping
go
away.
better. And that was a 2019 number. And we've already infused about $500,000 in there already. So that's a 2019. We have to look at it again. I haven't run the analysis again to say
Okay.
where we'd be. At 185, we stay current, meaning we'd stay at a 61. Anything above that is a bonus.
That's a good number to know. Okay.
And we also did ARPA funds on the we did ARPA funds on the Old Stanford Road
Correct.
sidewalk.
Mhm.
So then the rest of it is very small or basically the same numbers across the board. As far as drainage improvements at $100,000, I have a $50,000 study that we need to do to try to get a handle on a survey of all of our drainage in town. We don't have a complete survey of all of our drainage, guide rail signage, camera and security. That's for our town buildings. Then I have phase 2 of our energy savings initiative master plan. And then I have monies in there for EV vehicles and chargers. And this is really to do with our fleet side. So we have 7 fleet vehicles. And they're utilized by basically our land use departments, fire marshal, health, planning and zoning, inland wetland, town buildings, assessor, and our engineering, right? And if you look at them across the board, almost all of them should be replaced, right? So we have a Ford Ranger that we got from the recreation department in town buildings at 44,500 miles. That's our best one, right? After that, Jen spoke about it in her budget, right? Where she has a car in her budget. So hers was a 2004 with 111,000 miles on it, right? We're trying to purchase basically fleet wide. We did a study. Our engineering department, Maria, Christy, and Joe did a grant through WestCog to the state of Connecticut. It was congestion mitigation and air quality grant. And you would think that buying an electric vehicle and getting rid of a gas combustion engine, especially a 2004 or 2007 model, would fit the grant parameters. Unfortunately, we went in with 2 other towns and it didn't fit the grant parameters. For some odd reason, the DOT said it doesn't fit. So we lost the grant possibility, but it doesn't negate the need. So in my estimation, and speaking to our mechanics, I got 5 on here that should go, right? So anything over 100,000 miles and with a under a 2010 vintage, so to speak, should go. The 2007 and 2009, the fire marshal's vehicle is fine and one of the buildings is fine. The rest of them should go. I'm looking at trying to replace 2. If you add gens in, that's 3, right? So you got 3 out of the 5 get turned over in one shot. And the thought is that I'm trying to institute a fleet management software whereby Stanford did it. They had 150 vehicles. They're down to 98. They decreased their number of vehicles by 50%, increased ridership by 50%, just by having people sign out a vehicle and use it. So instead of one department having a vehicle, it's more shared, right? So instituting that, we probably can get away with not 7 vehicles, but maybe 6 vehicles at that point in time. So the 2 that I'm asking to replace, plus Jen's vehicle, that 3rd vehicle, that's 3 out of the 6 that we're looking, and then next year do the exact same thing. And we're looking for an electric vehicle. We're looking to try to do like a Chevy Volt or a Chevy Bolt. And then put in a charging station over at Locust Lot where we're parking, right? So a 2-phase, a 2-handle charging station. So that gets you to the $85,000 that's in the request. And if you roll Jen's 50,000 in, then you've got 3 vehicles, and we're halfway there to trying to turn over the fleet. We've never turned over the fleet yet. Basically, we've been taking police vehicles, and then there was a number of years where they had Dodge Chargers, and they were so bad when they were done, we had to get rid of them, and we couldn't take them. So we actually are on our first phase of this from 2008 when we started the process. And you can see what's happening, right? So we don't get to turn over the vehicles because there's nothing coming to us from the police department that we can utilize. So we're stuck with the vehicles that we have. So that gives you the plug on that. I don't know if you have any questions.
Well, so based on what we talked about when we heard the health, we would be moving the 2004 Crown Vic into this year's.
We'd be taking that thing off, right? Yeah.
Right.
So that would be the one, and then 2 others in here. And at that point in time, I mean, the 2007 Ford Ranger is actually in pretty good shape, right? At that point in time, I'd ask the mechanics which other 2 that we'd get rid of. And to be honest with you, I've got one in here that I got 100,000+ miles on it because the odometer doesn't work, right? So I can't give you what the mileage is, and then, then there's problems with every single vehicle, right?
I think we got to put the health Crown Vic on the thing to talk about. That's one of the little changes it would seem.
Right, she had it in her budget, so
Yeah.
if it's there, it's there.
But there's 3 employees that would share it too, though.
Right. Right. So that would be, she's got 3 over there, which then if they rotate that through, that's perfect. It's sometimes it doesn't come down to the mileage because it comes down to the fact that they could go out for an inspection. It's 2 miles away. It takes 2 hours to do the inspection and you come back. You did a 4-mile round trip. It was a 2 or 2.5 hour trip for you, right? Because you went out to do an inspection. So it can't necessarily be always on the mileage per se, the mileage that was used per year. You can't necessarily look at that. You got to look at actually how much usage. That's why we're trying to get into a fleet management software because it will go by hour, right? Not by mile, it'll go by hour. I sign it out from 10 to 12. I sign it out from 12 to 4, that kind of thing. And then I think I can probably drop a vehicle and then still maintain what we need for everybody to use. Because we don't want our staff using vehicles because then we get into a problem with insurance. They get into a car accident. They don't have this insurance that we have. They're on the town's dime anyways. The town's going to get sued for it anyways. It's a mess at that point. So any other questions on this?
All right.
So if we go to town buildings, again, the overall request is 14 million, but I took the $10 million from the police department reconstruction out because it's an anomaly. So Bill's request is at 4.3 million. It's up 2.8 from last year, but there's quite a number of projects. There's about 22 separate areas of concern. We already spoke about the Waveney House at 990. The Lapham Community Center generator, our generator service company just took that generator offline. They won't certify it, so therefore they turned it off. If we need it in an emergency, we can actually turn it on and use it, but it's got an engine knock, so it's going to throw a rod pretty soon, and they're not going to certify it for use. So they're not going to say we can actually keep it online. So we need to replace that. We've got $400,000 for a CHP unit at Lapham. That should take Lapham off the grid pretty much. And then also help power some of the lights that are at the water tower. Once Eversource Gas brings in brings the gas in there, we'll convert that over and we'll utilize that. We have $200,000 for the Nature Center for the Audubon House. The Audubon House is right now not being used. The Nature Center has a need to use it for programming for their 3s and 4s. They've got people on a large waiting list waiting. They'd like to partner with us. We just need to take care of the building itself and they'll take care of the interior. But the building itself needs a new roof, needs some work structurally. It's still sound. We had someone come in and take a look at it. We had a structural engineer come in and take a look at it, and their feeling is that we should save the building, but again, it needs some work. We have $95,000 spread over other various buildings at the Nature Center, mostly for roofs, roof for the visitor center, roof for the Rock House, roof for the cider house, and then some work at the Herb Cottage and the shed there. Some exterior work, some interior work that needs to be done. I have $100,000 for the schoolhouse daycare. Basically, we have some concrete columns that are spalling on the outside, and we have some concerns. We had a structural engineer come in and take a look. So we're getting water infiltration in. You can imagine water coming into the concrete, and then the rebar on the inside starts to rust and then starts to pop through, right? So I've got a lot of problems with that on that area. We did an emergency repair for $10,000 earlier this year, and we're looking at $100,000 for that. And I got another $100,000 for continuing with our oil to gas conversions as Eversource continues to expand. We look to do some more work. So I don't know if there's anything else on that overall.
I just want to know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amy.
Oh, I didn't.
Sorry, I came late.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had the opportunity to go through this with Tiger. As always, he does a phenomenal job. I have a question on the Waveney House 88 upgrade. Was that the same number we had in when we chatted about it a couple weeks ago? Did that number change? I just can't remember.
No, that's the number. That was the same number. That's correct.
Okay. All right. The community center generator, we are getting the mobile generator. Do we definitely need to have a freestanding generator at Latham? I'm just throwing that out as a question.
Lapham's considered to be our shelter.
Okay.
So I would say yes, we would need it, because the last thing I want to do is be fueling up a shelter, and then I need it someplace else if something else fails, right?
Yeah, that's fine. In the Audubon house, that one I need to I still feel like I need more information there. I went over to the Nature Center recently. I wasn't exactly sure which building it was. So it's a non-used building right now.
At present, yes.
Yeah, and I think we probably need like some backup in terms of what the proposal is from the Nature Center and how they're going to use it. So it's vacant right now. And then once we bring it online, because it's a town building, do we have to bring everything up to ADA code and stuff like that in terms of it?
Yes, but this would be part of that. So I think we'd be able to take care of that. There's a walkway that leads to it. There's bathrooms in it. So we just need to make the walkway compliant at that point in time. And then the rest of it is interior fit out work. But there's already an existing bathroom. Those bathrooms would be converted to be either ADA, or it's a short distance over to the visitor center, and you're allowed to move from building to building to take care of that.
Okay. Yeah. So that one, I know we went before. I feel like I need a little more detail on what it would be used for, et cetera, and I'll circle back with you on that to get a little more.
I can. The Nature Center, Bill Flynn did a nice job of a write up on that, so I'll get you that I'll get everyone that information.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions on town buildings? Fantastic. The highway department is at $508,000. I've got a replacement of a two-wheel dump sander. We try to replace one every 15 years. Okay, so as it goes, we're on a cycle. We have 13 trucks, 15-year cycle. I think during the Board of Selectmen, I think this truck itself has fought over 450 snowstorms, I think was the goal. I think it's 15 years old plus. Its mileage might not necessarily be that high, but it's 15 years old and should be retired. The lowboy dump truck is an 11-year-old model. It's fought about 240 snowstorms, and the loader is 15 years plus. We have 3 loaders, and we are on a rotating basis with each one of those. Then we have our equipment refurbishing at $25,000. That allows us to maintain our fleet and then get as much bang for our buck out of it. And then we have a pavement hot box whereby we can either put pavement in it of a day, heat it up overnight, and then actually have hot mix for the next day, especially during the winters. If we're going to fill potholes, we want to fill it with hot mix. We fill it with cold patch. It's a one-day event, right? You put it in and probably the next day it's gone. You got to go back and do it again. If the hot box itself is going to save us not only that amount of repeat work, but the fact of having to go to the plant, we can go and get extra material and then keep it warm throughout the day, especially on the cold days when they're actually out there doing this type of work. So it pays for itself in the end. Any questions on the highway? The transfer station is a $67,000 request. It's to replace the landfill mower. It's a 21-year-old model. When we capped the landfill, we bought the model. It's at the point where it needs to be replaced. It's actually a specialty mower that can handle the steep slopes on the transfer station itself. One of our staff comes in and mows it for us on the weekend, but the unit needs to be replaced. It's past its useful life at this point in time.
Hey, Tiger, any problem getting your hands on any of this equipment? You know, just in terms of if it's available?
Every time we talk, it's buy it now, right? So we're having that for almost everything that we're looking at is buy it now, or it's a far out lead. We were looking at light towers because we're thinking of replacing the 2 light towers that we have from the recreation department. The ice rink was going to need 4 to rent for this year, right? Soccer rents 4 to 6. The thought is, why are we having everyone rent when we could just buy new ones, because they can't necessarily use ours because ours are so old, buy some new ones. But even that, I was looking at a 24-week lead time, 20 to 24 weeks of lead time when we were asking for quotes. So you're talking, 5 to 6 months out at present just to buy a light tower. So yes, the problem is rampant across the board. When I get, when I talk about parks maintenance, one of our lines in parks maintenance for equipment, it was a $90,000 mower last year. It's $137,000 this year. $47,000 increase in 1 year. And it's not going to come back down again. It has problems with diesel emissions and other requirements and changes, and then the price of steel and things of that nature, but it's not going to come back down off that 137. So it's not like if we wait, it'll come back down. It's not coming back down. So we have problems across the board, not only getting stuff, but then the increased price thereof. So with that said, on the parks equipment side, the parks department has a replacement of a lowboy, exact same vintage as the highway department. We have a utility cart replacement. This is a replacement of a Kubota unit. It's 19 years old. We have a 72-inch mower, $62,000. That's a 10-year-old model. We have a ride-on mower. We try to replace 1 per year. It's 8 years old. Basically, they're utilized every single day. They're on their way out. We have our trailer replacement. We have 2 15-year-old trailers that we're looking to replace, $14,000. Our leaf box is 20 years old, and our vacuum is 12 years old. That combined price is $21,000. And then the athletic field mower, that's 16-foot model. And then we have an infield machine at $32,000, a stand-up infield machine. So that kind of runs you through equipment. You okay with that? All right. On the parks infrastructure side, the request is 2.3 million. It's up from $844,000, but we did roll in about $100,000 from recreation onto that side. So the line items that were on the recreation side that necessarily could have been considered parks maintenance, we brought them over, right? So we've got some stuff in on the, as far as the Mead Park tennis court lights, $55,000. That was on the recreation side. We're bringing that over. We've got other smaller items, out of the 18 separate locations of concern that John has in his budget. I didn't list them because they weren't necessarily higher items, but we have $220,000 to rebuild the clay courts at Mead Park. As we mentioned, tennis is booming at present. The clay courts are 30 years old. So they necessarily should be replaced. So we're looking at trying to do that at a time when it's off cycle, meaning that it won't be, we either do 4 and 4, or we'll do it at a time where we won't necessarily affect play as much. We have $450,000 in there for Dunning Stadium lights. Those are the existing, or the original lights, I should say. So they're 25 years old. We'd like to upgrade them to an LED. Right now, we've got problems with the towers themselves. They are now no longer code compliant. So we can't just change the fixtures on top because the towers aren't code compliant. They're no longer wind load or hurricane load, or now they have to have earthquake load them as well. So you're looking at replacing those in their entirety. Now that we're responsible for Dunning Stadium, we have not only this, but other items, capital items and maintenance items that are going to hit our budget.
Plus they do awesome light shows.
Right. They can, at that, if you go to that point, you can do some really nice work. What's out there now is actually pretty cool. We have $455,000 for the playground upgrades at Waveney Park. That's for not only the athletic one, but then to add a children's playground with it. It's the only park that doesn't have a children's playground. It was deferred from last year to this year, so we kind of created our own wave. And then again, we have our $50,000 for the exterior wall repairs at Waveney. I don't know if you've seen the work that's being done along Lapham Road. We're trying to rebuild that entire wall along Lapham Road since it's a gateway into town. Greg Flash has been doing a great job on that. Then kind of speaking forward, we've got $100,000 for this actually should be phase 3 for the Bristow Bird Sanctuary. We're getting really, really close to getting towards the end of the work there. This is for some trail replacement, some additional work in and around the sanctuary, but I don't know if you've been there, but it looks fantastic. We have a $300,000 marker for the NCAF for future projects, and we have a $300,000 marker for the Conservancy that the Board of Finance did. Last year, you asked us why we didn't have any money in for the Conservancy, because they'd never asked. They came back to the table. They have a 5-year plan, what they would like to do, and this is part of our participation therein.
Hey, Tiger?
Yeah,
Just
Mike.
a quick question on the Mead Park tennis courts lights. Is that all the tennis courts, and does that include the pickleball courts too?
No, it's only 2 of the courts. There's what court numbers are it? The 2 lower courts in the back corner. Those are both lit. It's not all. It's only just 2 courts themselves in the back lower corner.
Would you not do the other courts, including the pickleball courts, because that's booming, as you know?
These are replacements at present, but we can look towards adding lights to those. Yeah, to increase the playtime. Yeah, certainly do that. That hasn't been a request yet, but we were topping out here on the parks infrastructure. There was a time back in 2004 when parks infrastructure was actually higher than our road maintenance budget. And now we're getting to that point where they're getting close to what our road maintenance budget is again. So it was getting a little close, but we can certainly look at adding something back in for that, or take a look and see what that would be for pickle. I would say we would go to pickle next and then start doing other courts themselves. But I think you would want to light pickle up first and then possibly do other clay courts.
That probably makes sense. Yeah, because I know that it's just starting to boom, and there's a lot of people that are signing up for that now. So. And I don't know what we're doing but that's a rec department. We should start charging people next year, because I think that would be a money maker too. Because we didn't charge anybody for the use of the pickleball courts this year, but I think we should definitely charge next year.
Yeah, we're right now we're looking through our fees. At present, we've got to bring memos to the Board of Selectmen on the 22nd. And then we are looking at all the recreation fees. At present, I don't think we were looking at charging there, but we can certainly look at that again or revisit.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking you could charge them and that could cover the cost of the lights. And I think that would be a win-win. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we can take a look at that and see exactly what that carrying rate would be to try to put lights in there.
Great.
Hey, Tiger, what's the status of the bleachers in Dunning? Had those been repaired or replaced in the actual seats? Do you know?
Right. And that a lot of that's for Waveney, right? For Dunning. Yeah, so what we did was we went out and we did a bleacher inspection, all of our bleachers in town, because they had never been inspected and they're supposed to be inspected annually. And it came back with $125,000 worth of work, a lot of which is inside Dunning. It does incorporate a lot of areas, but we have some large concerns at Dunning, specifically along the edges, right, where there's fencing and it's starting to bow out and someone could fall through. But that didn't really make the list of the 18. Well, it made the list of the 18. It just didn't make the list on the slide. The slide, I didn't want to be too long. So we have $125,000 in there for that for capital for bleacher repair, and that's part of it. Did some work last year, but it was only small potatoes. This will actually take care of a lot more areas of concern.
But that's included in the 2.3 tool.
It's included in it. Yeah, I just ran out of room on the slide, and I didn't want to go to a second slide, to be honest with you.
It's a bad look.
Can you take
It's a bad look when you go to
It's a bad look when I got to go to the second slide. Exactly. Be perfectly honest with you.
Can you take some of the New Canaan Athletic Foundation future projects and use that for some of the bleacher work at Dunning?
our original thought was, well, it's a nice question. It's a great question. We put the marker in to try to stay with what they're proposing, to try to stay at a certain rate with the NCAF. At a $300,000 a year, it was by the time they roll around their next project, we'll probably be at a 600 or 900 for a $3 million project, 1/3 of the cost. So that's where we were trying to phase it in at each time. I could certainly try to pull it in, but then they'll be looking for that funding coming back on the backside. So, at the time that they go forward with their project, they have a very large project that they want to do in Dunning Stadium. It's a worthy question. I just don't.
But their goal was always to new projects. It's not maintenance.
Correct.
So their mission is not maintenance except for the turfs replacement.
Right. Thank you. So the only other thing I had was, I don't have it in the budget, but there was a discussion about Irwin itself and whether or not there's the thought to put in a boardwalk at Irwin as far as an adjunct to the existing walking trail that's there. The Garden Club went out and did a master plan of Irwin itself. Stimson Associates did it. And they came forward with this idea, which was actually part of the original plan from Richter and Segan back in 2007. It just didn't get funded at the time. But this plan was actually part of it. And then Stimson, not knowing that Richter and Segan had it, they came forward with the exact same idea. This rendition is about 900 feet long. It would have to be about a third boardwalk and 2/3 stone dust or trail material, maybe similar to what's being utilized at Waveney. And if I did the cost analysis out based upon what we were at for other boardwalks that we've done at Bristow or that have been done at the Nature Center, and then other walks that we have done at Waveney, as far as like our pricing from last year from our bid pricing, I was looking at somewhere on the order of $175,000 to $200,000. I don't have it in my budget at present because it came in late, but that is a thought. We haven't spent any money at Irwin, and it's an idea.
Oh, wait a minute. We spend $1 million a year on paying off the bonds for Irwin. So
They're paid off.
This year?
It's complete.
No,
Yeah, it is.
three more
20
years. 3 more years.
No, it was 20 years.
Well, we did it in 05.
I think Tiger's point is valid. We have to spend some maintenance on it. If it's one thing, you got to acquire something, but you still have to keep it up. Tiger, how long do these boardwalks last? I mean, what's the useful life before they end up needing a bunch of repair?
Well, this one, they wanted to use either locust or a cedar. So you're going to see a very long time on that as far as how long it would last. So you're talking 10 to 15 years or more, depending. So you'd see it, like I said, it does, the budget was a little heavy this year and it's a first read. So it doesn't have to be in this year. It could be in next year, but it should, it needs to see the light of day, whether it's this year or next year. I'm looking at, you could develop the plan set this year and then go forward next year, possibly. But it was just, it came in late and I want to give everything its due as far as just getting in front of the board for a review at present and then move forward. Because it started making its way through Park and Rec and then, the master plan, what have you, Park and Rec saw this and then
It didn't come to the selectmen.
Did not.
We tried. We were scheduled for January, and we had to postpone it till February. So we're a little late, but I had COVID and Diana was away, so we apologize for not making the schedule.
But it's a thought. It doesn't have, like I said, it doesn't have to be in this year. It's, a lot of times they don't make it in year one, right? Nor should they. It should kind of be, vetted and then moved, right? So the thought is that there is the question, there is the thought to do this and add a little bit more to Irwin and kind of utilize this wetland area, which is kind of neat. It would be a nice walk, a nice in addition to the area. But, like I said, the numbers weren't in at the time. The plan wasn't in at the time when we developed the budget. Now we're at that point. So is there any other questions on parks infrastructure? I know, I'm trying to get done. The Nature Center, I mentioned what we had.
Just one question. Did Diana want to present?
Diana, we have a short presentation. In full disclosure, I am the treasurer of Irwin Park and former chairman, and Diana's co-chairman. And we have a short presentation just to walk through
That's up to you.
Yeah,
Well,
Public Works was
you
very
should finish,
excited.
and then
yeah.
if you want to do it that way, I think that's
That's
going to be
fine.
the most efficient thing we can do.
All right. So I detailed out what we had before, but we have $295,000 of the building budget is inside the nature center. So Amy, I'll get you the numbers on the Audubon House, or what their feeling is on the Audubon House. It's not double dipping. We just usually keep this separate so you can see exactly what we're spending on the nature center itself. And then the last is the wastewater treatment plant. I have just under $1.2 million at the plant itself. All of this is slated to be taken out of the major maintenance reserve. You have $3.5 million in that major maintenance reserve. It's replenished every year from our septic fees. About $400,000 a year goes in there from our septic fees. So we're looking at continuing our engineering studies for zinc. Right now, we're making permit. We're good. We're inside our permit for our next 5 years, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to study, because that in 5 years might change. We might have other requirements. Our sewer rehab is we take care of about a third of our infrastructure every year. Clarifier, we have 2 of them. Last year, you gave us $80,000 to repair one, or to rehab and replace one. We're looking at doing the second one. Then we have $168,000 for our generator fuel tank. We need to take that from where it is, bring it up out of the ground. The fence itself, that's actually an original fence that we put in back when we originally did the plant 20 years ago. We judge storms, wind storms, by how many panels fall. So we're at the point now where we can't replace the panels anymore. So we've got to replace the entire fence. And it's a 3-panel storm is what we call it, a 4-panel storm. So yeah, and then the last is we have $815,000 for our UV replacement. We're basically at the point now where we're not going to be able to get parts anymore for it, right? And we've got to go through the engineering and the construction or the implementation. We originally had this planned out for a 2-year installation, but in speaking with our consultant, he said he could do the engineering and then bid it and get it in basically in 1 calendar year. So instead of bridging 2 budget cycles, we decided to bring it together. Plus the fact that the unit is 20+ years old, it's original, and we're having difficulty getting parts. So while we have $25,000 in there to get parts to then get us to the point where we're going to be replacing it, I don't want to have to spend that again, right? Or get to the point where I don't have it, because it's considered our post treatment, right? So it's a necessary part of the process. We need it, and I don't want to get to the point where we're going to be struggling to have one. So that's why we pushed it forward. It was in 2 years. I brought the construction forward, the installation forward to this year, and said, let's go forward with this, given the fact that we have all the money in the maintenance reserve.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's not.
That's why we have the money. That was our thought. So
Really a
that was it.
transfer.
If you have any other questions across the, so that tells you where we're at, where it's 6.38%. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but I've never had that number before. We're at 34% for our capital and a 19% increase overall. But
So I guess a couple of quick questions. One,
Sure.
I just want to make sure I understand what it all netted out to. What is your total capital request? Because there's a couple of different summaries here.
The total capital request,
Is it the 12?
it's a $12 million number.
12.5 million, but that does not
12.5
include the
million.
police department.
Does not include the 10 million for the police
So
department.
that's the only thing that's missing.
That's the only thing that's
So
missing.
in the capital summary here that we have in the budget, I see 22 million. That
Right.
includes the police department.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure so
Right.
that's
And
the request.
Yeah, what I have in my 12, it gets convoluted, but I have wastewater in there, but wastewater gets removed.
No, you
So-
do. Oh, that's a good point. It's not in
Right.
yours.
So-
It's not in the 22.
It's not in the 22.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would be, yeah. So that's the problem. So you're seeing 22.
Not for,
But-
not for you, for everything, parking, health, fire. everything.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just talking about your number. Your
Right.
number's the 12 plus, call it 10 for police.
Correct. That's 22, but then you take out Jimmy's 1.3
Okay. Yeah.
and then,
So you're really 10 then.
I'm really, yes.
Well,
Like,
11.
we've always had him in, so we just keep him in.
You're
But
11.
he's funded separately.
You're about 11. Okay.
So
So,
and $1 million of that's just waiving it. So, right. On
Yes.
that number, $1 million of it's waiving, and 600,000 is kind of our down payments for our public-private partnerships with the conservation and the athletic foundation, right?
Yeah, actually, well, 700,000 if you count Bristow, right? Because that's where we said it was a 5-year plan with Bristow. And it's like at 100 for Bristow, 300 and 300. So 700 of that is taken care of already on the park side. So that drives that parks number up as far as the capital on the
you
parks.
should really look at this increase. If that 34% includes the million for sewer, you shouldn't do that.
I can take that out. and
Take
tell
it
you where
out
we're
because
at.
it's
I can,
really
you know,
not, it's
I have
not-
two numbers that I run all the time, based upon where I am. for that, but
I'd take the sewer district out. It's capital that gets funded through that fund. So
That's fine.
I would take
We
it
can
out
do
of both the numerator and the denominator.
Works
I
for
just want to
me.
make sure I understand the total capital request, all summed up, is 26. This board has some work to do on Thursday night because we've got to decide question for you, Tiger, will be how much, we're going to have to come, does anything have to be prioritized here? Is there anything, we got the full list. There are going to be questions about 26. That's an awful lot, even amortized over 20 years. We just added $1.2 million to our annual expense, right? Or more. So we're going to have to think about what is the total amount that we can possibly fund for capital. So it'd be good for us to understand, like we did before, you're got to have it.
Yeah.
We kicked the can down already, kicked the can down the road 4 times already, versus, that could be deferred a year. So if you could have that for us and have some thinking around that. You knew this was coming.
I knew it was coming.
Okay. So I know you're ready.
Yeah, and Todd, when we look at this, I think a great example of how it's terrific if we can have the discipline to put money aside ahead of time is the situation we are with the sewer authority, because we have the money there and we can fund the project. So, it's really easy to say, let's cut these contributions to these joint ventures we have. But if they're really joint ventures, I think we should think long and hard about trying to put some money away ahead of time so that, 2 years from now, we go, oh yeah, we're gonna do this project and the money's there.
Yeah,
Just-
well, the pool fund and the theater
That was
fund
right.
and all of
Yeah,
our fund
we
funds.
did all that. Yeah.
Fund funds. Okay. Any questions for Tiger? Great presentation. Phenomenal summary, actually. It was really great.
All right. Thank you very
Great
much.
to be live too.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Well, I felt better this year.
Yeah.
Last
Nice
year I
to
did not
see
feel
you.
good.
Although it went up a lot this
yeah.
year, so we may go
Yeah,
back to
the
virtual
numbers.
next year. Just-
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to all of you. Thank you for everything, obviously, that you do, but also this great work. Okay. Any other questions for that? All right. Tucker, I think we've got a point in vote on COM being on the RPAC. Yeah, so Don, did you want to come up and take a few minutes to go through your presentation? I do want to make sure we have the, take a moment on with COM.
Just pass them down. We'll pass them down. No problem. Thanks. Just pass them down.
So I'm Diana Ferguson, co-chairman of Irwin Park for the New Canaan Garden Club.
You want to
Yeah,
hold the
get a-
mic up a little?
Yeah. Might have some questions. Yeah. Great. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to present to you tonight. For over 100 years, the Garden Club has engaged in many public-private partnerships with the town. In 1995, we began one of our longstanding partnerships, the extensive research, design, and fundraising effort to restore the walled garden in Waveney Park. We collaborated with the Waveney Park Conservancy in the restoration of the parterre garden and continue to maintain the gardens at Waveney. Members volunteer over 2,000 hours a year to civic projects benefiting our town. Over the past 15 years, one of the most significant undertakings of the Garden Club is the continued beautification of Irwin Park. We have planted 50,000 daffodils and over 40 trees in the park. As part of our very popular 3-year goat project, we've endeavored to eradicate Japanese knotweed and other highly invasive species from the western side of the park. The town has installed close to 1 mile of flexi-paved trails, thanks to generous contributions from the community of nearly $500,000. We completed the final loop of the trails in 2019, following a successful fundraising effort by the Irwin Park Committee. To date, the Irwin Park Committee has received no direct funding from the town for capital improvements. The Irwin Park Committee completed an extensive search and retained Stimson Landscape Architects from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to work in collaboration to prepare a long-range plan. They were subsequently recognized with the 2021 Landscape Architecture Firm Award from the American Society of Landscape Architects. We held several planning sessions since last spring, which focused on creating sustainable vision for Irwin Park. Our goal was to create a comprehensive and cohesive master plan that would provide a roadmap for the future. The Parks and Recreation Commission approved our proposed schematic design for a boardwalk approximately 900 feet in length, 8 feet wide, through the wooded western edge of the park. It would conform to the contours of the property and be composed of a combination of crushed stone and locust wood. We've added a lookout observatory to enhance the experience and allow for children and adults to have more quality time in nature. The plan meets all setback requirements and is ADA compliant. The establishment of this boardwalk through Irwin Park would further enhance the town's Green Link Trail, connecting Irwin Park to other land trust properties along with the Nature Center and New Canaan Parks. The biodiversity and ecological health in this area lends itself to a vast oasis of birds, butterflies, insects, frogs, and other wetland species. By providing more trails with varied experiences, we believe it will enormously enhance the quiet pleasure of being in the park. We can all agree that during the recent pandemic, the importance of open space was amplified worldwide. Recent scientific studies conclude that spending more time in green spaces significantly boosts or improves mental and physical health during these stressful and uncertain times. The boardwalk is our only request for funding of a capital item by the town. All of our beautification projects have been funded by the Garden Club through the endowment and generous contributions of our members and the community. Irwin Park has grown in popularity and continues to see an increase in visitors in all seasons. We respectfully ask for your support for this very worthy project that would significantly enhance Irwin Park for the New Canaan community. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Just one question. Has Kathleen Holland from Inland Wetlands taken a look at the plan yet?
It will be reviewed by
Right.
wetlands.
Yeah, just because I see it so close to the
due
15
course,
foot
yeah.
setback.
It's 40 feet. It's
Good,
about,
thank you.
I think 25 is required. Yep.
What do the neighbors think?
The neighbors we talked to love the idea. The two that are most adjacent, one is totally supportive. The other one, I do not know the neighbor. And there will obviously, there'll be public hearings. It'll come before town bodies.
How much was the ask?
Well, we're up to about 275, 300. If we did 600 linear feet of, with the trail mix, which is what you see at Irwin. I mean, excuse me, at
Sit here.
Waveney. That's their choice,
Yeah.
chosen dust.
Thanks. So
Please, yeah.
I ran another analysis after that,
It's a little
probably
lower.
around 5 o'clock. So it's a little bit less than that. So I took our costs from what was being spent at the Nature Center and what we had spent at Bristow. So it's around $61 a square foot for a boardwalk, right? So at 300 feet, 8 feet wide, it gets you around $125,000. And then I took 600 feet at our last bid price from 2021 for Waveney trails that we did, 8 feet wide again. And that came to around $25,000, give or take $30,000. It's around $38 and change per linear foot for 8 feet wide. So you add that to 40 times 600, you get to about $24,000. So I got to around 150, said, oh, it's a year old. I got material problems. That's why I came to the 175 to 200. So at about 175 to 200, if you do a 300-foot boardwalk and then 600 feet of trail on either side. And the thought from the designer is that you probably just need about 300 feet of boardwalk, and then the rest of it can be actually at grade. Well, it'll be traveling through a wetland. It won't be wet per se. So that's the overall thought. I'm at about 175, $200,000, but it's a tough, very tough.
That's better.
Right.
What's the elevation differential between the highest point and the lowest point on the proposed boardwalk?
So we're trying to keep it as very close to the water as possible, right? So you're allowed we don't want to have a railing or a fall factor. You're allowed 30 inches from grade, to basically not the water height, but actually the soil height below the water. So we're allowed 30 inches, which we're going to try to stay below that level.
I mean, are you at any point of this boardwalk, are you going uphill? You're gaining like.
You'll be gaining elevations predominantly throughout. Yeah.
So if it's,
gradient.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's contours on the sheet. I just don't have it in front of me to tell you exactly what it is, but it would be ADA compliant because the walkway itself, the flexi paved walk that it would come from and join is compliant. That grade is compliant. So anything that meanders through to come up, since it's a longer distance, would be compliant, but you would be walking uphill through the, well, or downhill, depending.
and it
upon
would be
which
a
you're going.
locust surface, which would, if it got moldy, it could get slippery. And if you're going uphill, that's where I'm going with this question.
Right, it's more of a gradual, since it's so long, more of a gradual, and the majority of the grade change could probably be taken up with the stone versus the boardwalk itself. You know, you can try to get the majority of the change and grade done that way, depending upon how you lay it out. Right? So it's a good question. You know, you have that problem everywhere, but we haven't heard any complaints on the boardwalks that we put in of late. You know, that they're slick. We had a problem at Bristol when we were using a synthetic material. You know, that tends to glaze over and get a little ice sheen on it too, and you can't notice it. But we haven't had any complaints yet that I've heard from the Nature Center or from the walks that we did at Waveney as part of the pond or others. I haven't heard that yet. So, but it's a good question.
Two points. Keith Ritchie mentioned this at the Park and Rec. In the area that is the iciest at Irwin, the boardwalk would go around it. But also just to remind you, when we went through so many public hearings in the purchase of Irwin, it was agreed in town that the Public Works Department would not clear the trails and would not go in snowy weather, that we would simply not be able to use it. So I think that would still
That would hold.
respond to that
Yeah, we're not
concern.
going
Yeah.
to go out and
If
clean
it's
snow on the boardwalk.
iced or something, then it just doesn't get used.
We can't plow the flexi pave.
No, we can't possibly.
If we plow the flexi pave, we'll actually
It's
ruin
too
it.
much labor.
Right?
Yeah.
They say you can, but we actually
Yeah.
did some tests on it and you necessarily can't. The stones will start to pop, and the moment the stones start popping, then you're starting to lose material. So the thought is, we don't plow it. We haven't plowed it since we put it in. So there would be no need to go in and do the boardwalk if you can't. If
Yeah,
we're not
if
going to
you
plow the
can't
area to get to it.
navigate
We
the-
wouldn't plow the boardwalk. But yeah.
They are clearing it in Boston successfully, but I didn't want to come back and have that dialogue all over again. It's not worth it. It's not that many weeks.
Hey, Judy, can we get the presentation put up on our tablets? Is it available?
Sure, happy to. Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Oh, any other questions? Just from a process point of view, this is not in your budget.
not in my budget.
No, it was not in the
Process
selectmen's budget. Okay, so we'll consider it, but we'll have to wrestle with
Yeah.
figuring out what we're going to do. So you understand.
Great. We get it. We get it.
Okay, all righty. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. A good update. Okay. Okay, so with that, I'd like to just revisit what I was just talking about. We've got Colm, I've asked him to replace George Blofeld. Kind of piece of cake, replacing George.
It's all right.
You know, and so he agreed to accept to be on the RPAC committee. So I do need a motion to approve in a
So moved.
second. I have a Tom motion, and who seconded it?
I'll second. That's
Judy?
fine.
All in favor? Appointing Colm to the position? Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Michael, aye.
Aye, yeah, aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you, Colm. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Colm. Okay. Now, we have, last item on the agenda is something we're going to move to executive session. So I'll need a motion to adjourn this meeting, move to executive session. Then I'll need to invite, who we inviting?
Tiger and Bill Ostman and Ann, if you wish to stay.
And it's optional if you don't. Yeah. Okay, good. Love to have you stay.
And Josh doesn't have to stay because it's not a budget item.
Yeah.
Tucker has to stay to take notes. And
Tucker, okay.
And our online or board.
We
And-
have, well, they're online.
They're-
They're members.
But
That's
Yeah.
fine.
but
So we
they're
go into
all-
executive session. We're going to invite some counterparties into this, prospective counterparties into this discussion, but we won't identify them as.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Okay, so motion to adjourn the regular Board of Finance meeting? Tom, so moved. Chris, second. All in favor?
And there'll be no vote when you come out.
Aye. Opposed? None? Okay.
So who moved?
There'll be no vote. will come out and you'll simply adjourn the meeting.
Yeah. So we've.
So we're now.
Tom and Chris.
Okay.
And we're
Tucker has to limit.
Okay, motion. So moved.